Our goal,
Go ahead.
our goal today is to hear from each candidate within the hour. So all the candidates for all the rural areas within an hour. So we are really going to have to stick to time. And so if you see me signaling you or hear me signaling you, it means that you have to wrap it up. So thank you in advance to all the candidates today who are going to respect our time constraints. We really appreciate that. And if you do happen to be long-winded and at some point I have to cut you off, I appreciate your forgiveness in advance for doing that, since I have to stick to some time constraints today. So thank you so much for understanding that. We are recording this meeting. So if you do know of someone who couldn't be here today, the recording will be available later and you can send them the link, because I suspect that there's a lot of members of TBA interested in hearing what the candidates are going to say today. So there will be a recording and that link will be available later. So you're all being recorded. I hope that makes you as nervous as me. Just kidding, I'm not nervous. I enjoy this stuff. So thank you, by the way, to the folks who are engaging in the chat box. Really appreciate you communicating with us and engaging with us in that manner. It's so nice to see. We've got representation from Edmonton, St. Paul, even Clyde. By the way, I live in Westlock. Edmonton, Bragg Creek, Pigeon Lake. Oh, this is just super. So there's representation from a lot of communities in Alberta, and I'm just so happy to see this. I'm happy that you guys are all here. And so we'll be starting in just a couple of more minutes. If you haven't already, though, make a note of our website, tba2022.ca, and make sure you're checking that out at some point. If it's on your heart to donate to the good work of Take Back Alberta, the email address to send donations to is finance@tba2022.ca. So that's some information for you, and we can put that in the chat box later on. Now, if we're ready to get started with the first candidate, let me just confirm that Mark Hunt is indeed here. Mark Hunt, if you're here, feel free to unmute.
Thanks, Benita.
Just before Mark speaks, so the clock hasn't started, Mark. Just so you all know, 7 to 8 is rural, that's South Central and North regions. Then at 8 to 9 is the all candidates. So the province-wide positions, there's 4 of them. That's from 8 to 9. So expect the room is going to be extremely full at 8 to 9, because everyone from Calgary and Edmonton is going to join as well at that time. And just in case we get full, we're streaming live on Facebook. Facebook as well. So on Battle for Alberta. So Vince Byfield's Battle for Alberta is streaming live as well. So hopefully we'll have people on both, and we have somebody ready to help with the chatting on Facebook. So people ask questions. That's really important. What we're going to do is each of the candidates is going to speak 5 minutes. There's going to be one question that David Parker is going to ask of the candidate. It's not pre-rehearsed. So we'll see how fast they are on the spot with tricky questions. And then afterwards, we encourage the candidates to stay on and just stay in the chat segment. So the chat, is where you can post your email address and answer questions of people that are going to ask those questions of you. So that's it. So we're going to get started with Mark Hunt. I'll let Benita introduce, and then as soon as Mark starts speaking, that's when the clock starts ticking.
I just want to say one of the things I love about Take Back Alberta is that we're following democratic process, and this is part of democratic process is each person gets a chance to speak. We get a chance to listen. And so I have a lot of admiration for this organization, and I'm proud to be a part of it. And I'm so glad you are all here to be part of this democratic process as well. And I'm glad you are all here to be part of this democratic process as well. And so now let's hear from our first candidate. You have 5 minutes. Go ahead, Mark Hunt.
Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Mark Hunt. I've been, I guess about last October, I got started in the freedom movement when my career started coming to a complete halt with the COVID problems. I manage assets for a large senior oil company in Western Canada, and they came in with the COVID mandates, and quite a few of us lost our jobs. So really last October, I got started in this and started becoming engaged not only in the freedom movement, but also within the and started looking at politics. We started looking at Take Back Alberta back in, I'm going to say January. We got started regionally in the Bonnyville area, and then we started promoting that. And we've been active almost monthly with meetings and all kinds of different actions. With Take Back Alberta, we brought APP up to Bonnyville and had them do some stuff, and we've had Danielle up a couple times, and I believe Brian Jean came up for one meeting with people that were interested. But in essence, I've seen this affect not just myself with my own career. I've seen my children have to stop their education at the universities. I've seen my daughter-in-law, concerned that she wouldn't be able to finish her master's degree. My wife and daughter and nieces are teachers, and they were being affected by it. And just the overall stress and everything else it just finally decided, we needed to be engaged, and started talking with David Parker, and we just looked at everything and we said, we just can't, we can't stop doing this. We had to become politically active generally, a lot of us weren't really within that spectrum. My family has served Canada since about the Boer War from the east, and then I came out west back in '88. Actually, '85, I came out west. I came to Edmonton in '88, and just looking at all the different parameters that we're seeing and all the rights abuses and everything else, we just decided that we needed to come in and start looking at the grassroots movements and how we could be part of it. Not only as just myself, but as a family, and I'm a firm believer in family values. I want my children and my grandchildren and to have the same opportunities that I've had as growing up in Canada. And if we don't start slowing down the government overreach, it's going to put us in some significant concerns and issues. I was going to try and post a cartoon, but basically it's it's a Mickey Mouse cartoon where Pluto has got a big, well, it looks like a turkey on a plate, and we get to eat good while we're in quarantine, and of course Mickey Mouse says, "Where's Donald?" Right? But not quite the same response when you without the visual capabilities here, and I just couldn't get that going here. So, but in essence, what I want to do is I want to get more people involved. I mean, we talk about TBA being a means of having good governance across the province, but I think TBA and everything we're doing is about getting that involvement, getting that engagement from our communities. We've been lucky here in the Bonnyville area. We've got 2 TBA captains, myself and Mitch Sylvester, and we've been really working hard to get provincially to get that engagement, and not only just provincially, but within our regions. We've been working with multiple groups up here, and as a director, what I'm looking for is I want to be, not only do I want to be engaged in work and serve the community, but I also want to start, maybe bringing some of this concept of or removing this concept of elite politicians where they know best and the rest of us don't know what we're doing. And so one of the things we've been doing here is really pushing that engagement and pushing that involvement. And I think it's important not only for the directors board, but also as we look at the constituency associations, is getting more people involved and getting more of the grassroots people involved that have moral standards and that are going to protect our rights and freedoms, that are going to stop this attitude of the elite saying, well, it doesn't matter what you think, or it doesn't matter whether we have a constitution in place to protect you. We're just going to go against it anyways. And so that's where my big fight has been. And I plan on continuing that fight. And I want to maybe get people to start thinking about where we are
20 seconds.
as a province. And obviously Danielle Smith's got a lot of those views. So I'm
seconds.
a strong supporter of her. And thank you.
And
Well, Mark, I'd just like to thank you for everything that you've done for Take Back Alberta. And thank you for giving this speech. So my question for you is this: why do you volunteer so much time? What is the driving passion behind your desire to give of yourself, sacrifice your time, your resources to try to fight for freedom? Like what motivates you?
My kids. I have 5 children and 3 grandchildren. And my wife comes from a big family, and though I don't, we're in a rural community. Most of her family farms, and my kids are starting to farm also. And I don't want that taken away from them. I don't want Trudeau to put us into concentration camps. I don't want Trudeau to take away those what we consider God-given rights, but also the rights that we have or are entitled to with the Constitution and the Charter of Rights and Freedoms.
Well, thank you, Mark. Appreciate that. Over to you, Benita.
thank you, David. Much appreciated. And thank you, Mark Hunt. The next candidate we're going to hear from for the North region is Victor Millions. We'll be hearing from Victor Millions right now. Why don't you just check your microphone, Victor, and make sure it's working?
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Perfect, Victor.
Okay.
You have 5 minutes, and when your time is close to up, I will be giving you an audio signal.
Thank you. Okay, my name is Victor Millions. I'm running for Northern Director. And the reason I got involved in this, I was just dissatisfied with everything that was happening with the pandemic. And I got involved with Take Back Alberta through a house meeting that Joel Mullen hosted in Sherwood Park with my brother-in-law. And basically went from there, and then listening to David Parker and Vince Byfield at Church of the Vine, and decided to get involved a little more and run for Northern Director. And I really had no idea what it was about and put my name forward. I am a Christian, a father of 3, a grandfather of 3, and I've been married for over 30 years. That's all I got right now. Any questions?
Well, hello, Victor. Thank you. And it's
Hi,
great
David.
to see you. Asking a question of everyone. So the question that I want to ask you to help our all the viewers is, how do you feel about a system right now, and what do you want to see changed? You even have 4 minutes to answer that if you want, because you have some more time. So what is it that inspires you, not just the events that led up to it with Take Back Alberta, but the driving passion behind your desire to serve? Because let's not forget, folks, and I want everyone to remember this, everyone on this is volunteering their time to do this. And they shouldn't be like slandered or talked bad about. Everyone here is doing this out of the goodness of their heart. So we're giving you our attention and our time because we want to know why you and what inspires you. I want to know who you are, and I think everyone here does too. So tell us why you, why do you want to be a director? Why do you want to sacrifice? Like, what is driving you?
Okay, I've been following politics since I was like 10 years old when Peter Lougheed got elected, and watched the progressive conservatives basically become more and more elitist as time went on. And then finally, Wild Rose came along. They were a breath of fresh air, but unfortunately, they got beaten out by the NDP. And then there was the UCP Wild Rose Alliance. And again, once Kenny got in, it seemed to be more elitism. And I want to see it get back to the grassroots. As you've explained, like, it's supposed to work from the grassroots to the CAs, to the directors, to the caucus, to the premier. Okay, it's supposed to work from the bottom up, not from top down. So we should not be dictated to any longer.
I can't unmute. There we go. Thank you very much, Victor. And thank you for all you've done for TBA and being a part of this and putting your name forward. I think everyone needs to be very thankful for these people that are putting their names forward, because without them, none of this would be happening. So thank you very much, Victor. And over to you, Benita.
Thank you.
Thank you, Victor, as well. Thanks. A little bit unorthodox. We sort of expected a 5-minute speech, but then he switched it over to the Q&A early. Well, that's okay. We're making that work. Our next candidate for the North region is Vicky Kosnak. Vicky, would you please check your microphone and make sure it's working right now?
Hi, Benita. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear, Vicky. So
Great.
you have up to 5 minutes for a speech if you wish, and then at least one question from David.
Perfect. Thank you. So my name is Vicky Kosmak LaFriends. I as well am running for Northern Director, and I am from Fort McMurray. I run my own consulting business up here, and I live here with my family. I've been here for over 10 years, and I am new to TBA. I know both of my colleagues running for Northern Director here are involved in TBA, obviously. Although I've not been directly involved, it's interesting to listen to what everyone is saying. And I really enjoy learning about your platform, because I kind of feel like I've been doing the same thing, but from the inside of the party. And I'll just tell you my story about how I even got involved. So back in 2018, the NDP is in power, and I'm living here in Fort McMurray. The oil sands are 20 minutes up the road for me. And you know how the NDP felt about the oil sands. They wanted to keep it in the ground. And I'd had enough. And one day I literally walked into my MLA's office and I said, how can I help? And I've been helping ever since. I was elected as the CA president for Fort McMurray Wood Buffalo the following term. And I've been holding that term ever since. It's been over 3 years now. And in that time, I've been organizing, I've been fundraising. We've raised over $100,000 for this party. We've put together amazing fundraisers, because everything that we do does cost money. We've tripled the membership, and we most recently hosted a leadership debate forum here in Fort McMurray at the Oil Sands Trade Show. And that was really important to get all of those candidates up here to be able to debate, so that the members here could hear what they each had to say. I think someone has their microphone on. So a little bit about why I'm running. Couple of things. I think the members are the most important part of this party, and we need to stay focused on those members. Another thing that we need to focus on is the communication from the members up to the party and back down. And the third thing we need to do is focus on May 2023 is our next general election. So if I could just talk about each of those, because I do want to use my 5 minutes here. The members are the lifeblood of the party. And one thing that we have to remember in our constituency associations, and even as directors, presidents, we each have our own personal opinion, and that's important. But when we are representing at the board level and at a regional level, we have to make sure that we are bringing the opinions and the thoughts of our members up to that level, because we don't want to end up in the same situation where there was just an elite group that was running everything. We need to make sure that those members' voices are heard. And we're going to be able to do this through the communication. I also think that communication with our MLAs is very important, because the MLAs need to stay focused on the members. I have heard MLAs say, the boss. They talk about the boss. And I say, wait a second, the boss isn't the premier. The boss are the members, the people who voted you, and you have to remember who the boss is. And the same thing about the board. We need to get them focused on the members. They're not on the board to have a title after their name on their Twitter account. They're on that board to serve the members. They're there to organize and grow that membership base. It's going to be so important in defeating the NDP next spring. Communication, there's a lot that we need to talk about and make sure that, like I said, the members' concerns are actually making it to the board level. Decisions are made at the board level, like at the board level, the provincial board level. We don't legislate. That's not what we do. But we do run a lot of things that need to be driven by member input. And finally, that election that's coming up in 2023, I commit, if I'm elected as Northern Director, to use my experience, there's going to be a lot of work that needs to get done. I know what needs to get done, how to do it, and who I need to contact to get things done. We have CA AGMs that are due before the end of the year. We have nomination contests that are now reopened. For example, Fort McMurray Wood Buffalo, our nomination contest is now open. And I would like to even share with the group here today, does everybody know where to go to find out if their nomination contest is open? Or has it already been held? Has somebody been endorsed by the party? And has somebody filed to even be a contestant? All of that's available. I can share that in the chat box with you later. You should be able to find that information out. So there's also CA board meetings, campaign events, membership drives, and membership engagement events. And that's all the kind of activities that I want to help the Northern CAs participate in. There's 13 constituency associations coming up to 2023, that May election. Not every one of those seats is a guaranteed UCP seat. The ones that are at risk, we're going to need to help them out, because in my opinion, the biggest threat is another NDP government. This province cannot survive another NDP government. And hopefully, with your blessing, I'll be elected as Northern Director, and I commit to making sure we have a successful majority government in May 2023. Thank you.
And thank you, Vicky. Thank you very, very much for being here today and sharing that message. Wow, those were our Northern candidates, folks. You've now heard from all three of the Northern candidates. And so just to review those names, first we heard from Mark Hunt, then we heard from Victor Millions, and now we've just heard from Vicky Kosmak. So if you're staying in the chat, Mark and Victor and Vicky, I sure hope so. I encourage you to rename yourselves with your first and last name, and also write that you are a candidate for the North. And I encourage all other candidates to do a similar thing. So that's my recommendation. Now, David has a question for Vicky, and then we'll move forward.
Thanks, Benita.
Hey, Vicky, welcome to the TBA family, and we're glad to have you here. Thank you for the work you've been doing on the inside. I know that Sam Stanky's a good friend of yours, and I know you guys have been fighting the good fight. For those who don't know, Vicky was integral in helping even allow us to have the special general meeting. So that's something that she's not bragging about here, but that was a very—
No, I actually sat on that committee too, yeah.
A very big achievement that we're all very helpful for as well. You're running for Northern Director. We have 3 people running for Northern Director. What would be one of the things that, one of the tangible ways that you would want to get more communication to the members, in the sense of building more sense of community in the North? It's a very big region. It's very disparate and very regionalized. How would you build your network in the North to reach everybody and make sure that the members are being heard, like you said?
There's a couple of things I'd like to do. First of all, in each constituency association, or even some of those that are close, like the 2 Fort McMurrays or the 2 Grand Prairies, every time there is a minister or an MLA visiting, what I like to do in our own, and what I have been doing in our own, is sending out an invite. First of all, arranging some time, a couple of hours for that minister to stick around in town so that person can meet with our local members. And then I send an invite out to the entire CA membership, or to our board at least, so that people can come in and talk with that minister. And that really gets people out. I mean, it doesn't have to be a fancy affair. Like, even go to Boston Pizza for $250. You can get a bunch of appetizers. Everyone comes out for a few hours, they engage, and you get that sense of community going. So that's one thing that I would like to do. And I think if I'm elected, what I would suggest to the executive director and even to the president is that when these ministers are visiting rural areas, almost in particular, because we always seem to be kind of left out, that they give notice to their CA board that they're even showing up, because there will be times when ministers come to town and I don't even know about it. Like, nobody's bothered to reach out. So we need to tell CA boards, because they're the ones in touch with the members, that these people are coming out, and you get them to interact with the members. And then the other thing is, I think there can be a better, there's a lot of emails that go out right now to membership. I think we're all at a little bit of email fatigue from all the communication because of the leadership review and then the leadership race and now the AGM. So some people aren't exactly reading their emails, but that's the other way that we need to have a targeted email and maybe confirm that people's emails are even accurate anymore so that they know to watch out. This one's coming from the party. This one's coming from my CA. I want to pay attention to that because they're going to have an event, something that I can come to. And then I also think quarterly is maybe a little bit optimistic, but I think at least twice a year, we should be having member events and something fun because it doesn't always have to be work. Like get people
Vicky,
out.
I'm gonna have to cut
Sorry.
you off because we
Oh, is
have
that
to move
it?
forward.
Okay.
But thank you. Yes.
Okay, I
we
do
don't
have a lot of plans,
time.
so thanks for the opportunity,
Yeah.
Benita.
Super, thank you. We have to move on because we have to hear from some other candidates. So you've heard from all three now from the North region. We're now going to go to the Central region. We'll be hearing from Abigail Shimke first. So Abigail, if you could please take a moment to check your microphone.
We are
Hello.
changing the order a little bit. Sorry about that. We're just changing the order a little bit. So for the candidates, we're going to Central first and then South, okay?
Okay, so Abigail, how's your microphone working there? Let's check it out.
Pretty good.
Oh, good. Yes, we can hear you clearly. So Abigail, you have up to 5 minutes for a speech. And then after that, a question from David Parker. Go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to thank Take Back Alberta, and I want to thank David. I want to, he's the reason I'm even here tonight. And I just want to introduce myself. My name is Abigail Shimke. I live here in Sylvan Lake. I'm very blessed. I work at my church and at a small private Christian school. I'm the financial administrator, so I have lots of experience sitting on boards. And up until about a year ago, I didn't have a lot of interest in politics. I went to my first TBA meeting in January, and I listened to David speak. And after being in shock the last year before that of what our government had been doing, and that the division they had created, I was very motivated to start to get involved. The COVID left me with a family that no longer talks to us. I have a daughter who lost her job. I have a second daughter who was bullied, harassed, and yes, discriminated against at her own post-secondary institution where she actually paid to go to school. My daughter plays soccer at the college level, and at one point they would not allow her to play soccer outside on the field. So I'm a pretty ticked off mom. So at my first TBA meeting, I learned that that a part of where we are at today is because of us. We kind of dropped the ball. It's our fault. We'd become complacent and trusting, and we'd let our government kind of go ahead and do whatever they wanted. And that got us into this mess. And that was the day that I decided that I needed to do my part and get involved. Over the summer, I helped two of my friends run in their nominations. Unfortunately, we were unsuccessful, but it was really good experience. I enjoyed the campaign. And I helped out Danielle Smith, her campaign team, whenever they were in Central Alberta. And I went to every single political event I could over the summer. So after that, I thought the next step would be to join the board. So my friend Jennifer Johnson, she held this position before I did. And I thought it's so nice to have someone down here in this area because the North is already, or not the North, but Edmonton's already represented by the other lady that sits on the other part of the other seat on the board. And I thought, I want the board to be more democratic. I'm very disappointed in some of the decisions the board has made over the last year. I want some transparency. I want, like even when we were doing the nominations for my friends, you know, the way that the list would show up and when they would show up and names missing off of them. And it just, and nowadays with the technology and the databases, that shouldn't be the case. And first and foremost, right now, I want to do whatever I can to win big against the NDP in 23. And I think that is the most important thing that any of us can do right now is unite, bring the party together, try to resolve any conflicts that we have. And I want a grassroots-led provincial board. That is the key. And I hope all of the things, I've actually really enjoyed even this campaign. It's, the most work I've ever done for a volunteer position, but I have so enjoyed, just making the phone calls and just the relationships I've built, getting to know people. And I've been so impressed. Even Danielle's campaign team was so wonderful. And I look forward to sitting on the board with hopefully all the TBA people. So thanks.
And thank you, Abigail. Now for a question for you from David Parker.
Hi, Abigail. Thank you for coming and thank you for doing your part, attending all these events. I've seen you at many meetings and you were definitely one of the mama bears of TBA that I'm always referencing on the stage. So thank you very much. And thank you for all that you've done to push this forward. My question for you is very similar to my question to pretty much everyone else. What is driving you? Not what are the events, but what is the passion? What is the emotion when you think about it? Why are you pushing through the fear of not knowing something to learn about politics and to get involved?
I want to make a difference. I want to make a difference. I want things to be different. And I want a grassroots-led provincial board. And I don't feel that's what we have right now.
Thanks again, Abigail. We appreciate your speech and answering the question. Really appreciate that. We will now be hearing from Al Beal. He is another candidate for the Central Region. So far, you've heard from Abigail as one of the candidates for that region, and now Albert Beal. Albert, if you're okay, give us a signal. Try out your microphone.
Yes, it's working, I think.
Yes, we can hear you clearly. Thank you, Albert. And so go ahead, Albert, you have 5 minutes and then a question from David Parker.
Okay. I grew up on a farm about 10 miles west of where David Parker grew up. And after high school, I went to Edmonton and went to NAIT for 2 years and took building construction technology. And then I worked in the construction industry and became a journeyman carpenter and eventually started my construction company. And I sold it in 1981 after Trudeau Sr. screwed up the economy and went to university and got my civil engineering degree. And so I've been working as a consulting engineer for the last 30 plus years. And I've had the opportunity to work almost in every municipality in Western Canada. I was in charge of Imperial Oil's construction and engineering standards for 9 years. And so I got to work not only nationally and internationally. So I've seen I've had a good broad vision of what Canada and the United States and the world has to offer. And I would say my strongest value in all of this is freedom is my strongest value. And so I felt that I seen Alberta going slowly downhill over the years in terms of its bureaucracy and rules and regulations and opportunities. And just because we had the money didn't mean we should be wasting it away and increasing our bureaucracy. And so 2 years ago, I joined our Strathcona County, our Strathcona Sherwood Park Constituency Association just to get involved. And I was somewhat disillusioned with how the whole process was. Our MLA was basically, I would call it a Jason Kenney puppet. And when all this COVID stuff started coming down, I was one of the few board members that spoke up, and I was going to I told my wife, I says, I'm not quitting. They're going to have to kick me off the board because I'm going to speak my mind and I'm going to stand my ground. And so when TBA came around, we started having meetings at our house here every Sunday afternoon for, 5-6 weeks with Joel Mullen would come and speak. And we'd phone everybody we knew and get them out here. And basically we were able to meet those objectives. And so my whole objective as running for Central Alberta Director is to make sure that we get back to our grassroots and our and restore the freedoms and the rights that we have had, you know, in this province before. And what COVID did, in my opinion, was show all the weaknesses in our system, and we as a board of directors have to you know, lead the party, you know, not only to victory this coming May, but once we get victory, we got to start closing some of these loopholes that are, you know, when it comes to our constitutional rights and our human rights and our those kinds of things as well. And that's why I'm a, you know, running for first, you know, Central Alberta. And I was also disillusioned with how poor the communication was between our board of directors at the provincial level, our constituency association, and our members at large. I mean, we had about a year ago, we had our annual general meeting to for, you know, to put in our candidate, and our membership went from, I don't know, maybe 200, 300, 400. And all of a sudden there's only 50 people under membership, and I'd be phoning up people, why weren't they at the meeting? Well, they hadn't known that their membership had expired. And so then we ended up, you know, so those kinds of technical little nitpicking things are really, really important to make sure that our members at large are always involved all year round, and like, you know, and I know what's going on here, and not just, oh, all of a sudden every 4 years they you know, oh, we better hustle up a few people and get them to help on the election. I think we got to get people involved on a regular basis, and I like what Vicky said about having at least, you know, events twice a year, and anytime, and you know, ministers in the area, they should stop by, and the members at large should be able to come and meet them and greet them. And so basically that's you know, the long and the short of it.
Thank you so much, Albert, for being on this call. Albert Beal is one of the candidates for the Central Region. And now go ahead, David, with your question for Albert.
Albert, welcome, and thank you very much for everything you've done in Take Back Alberta in this province through your career. You've just been a great support to Take Back Alberta. My question for you is a little bit different, but along the same veins. And I just want one experience you've had of seeing what the people are capable of doing and how that's inspired you.
So repeat that, please, again.
So like, what have you seen people taking action and fighting corruption? Give us one example of a time you've seen that.
Well, I've seen it. Let's see here. I'm just trying to think at the corporate level. Yeah, it's a tough one, because a lot of people, what I've noticed is, you know, people often will step forward or say they want to help, but as soon as they get confronted or you know, I haven't really seen a lot of people carry through the confrontation and see it through. I'm willing to do that, but we've noticed that a lot of people, that they'll support you, but as soon as the you know, the heat gets on, a lot of people are heading down the road, and I don't know why, but that's the way. I think that's part of human nature, because a lot of people are concerned about their jobs, their families, etc. They maybe don't have the self-confidence in who they are in dealing with some of these things. But yeah, I would like to see some of this, you know, this corruption insider stuff come to an end, and be a lot more transparent, and you know, and people held accountable, and the only way we can be held accountable is by, you know, we have to be transparent, and I think we have an opportunity here with, you know, because of TBA, and here you know, at this opportunity with the AGM and the new board of directors, that we could set a precedence for the rest of politics, not only in Canada, but the world. If we get enough of the right people with the right moral and ethical standards, and willing to, you know, have the backbone to stand up and make these changes, I think we can lead the world in making changes for democracy for the entire world.
Thank you, Albert. We appreciate you being here today. So ladies and gentlemen, you have now heard from two candidates for the Central region. You heard from Abigail Shimke and Albert Beal. And so now we're going to interview some candidates for the South region. And the first one we will hear from is Albert Van Heerden. So welcome, Albert. Let's test your microphone, make sure it's working. Is it good?
Testing, 1, 2.
Sounds good to me. You have 5
Can you hear me?
minutes and then a question. Yes, go ahead.
All right, thank you. So yeah, just first by way of introduction, I'm born and raised on a farm, a large family, Southern Alberta, in the Lethbridge area. And so I still farm as well, but my main business is in a different area. We actually do commercial playground equipment in Southern Alberta. We work with major cities and towns and school boards and most of the towns and villages throughout Alberta as well. And I suppose the reason why I'm getting involved in this is that over the past few years, obviously, just like many of us, there's some major concerns with our liberties and freedoms being eroded away. And one of the first things that really became apparent to me was that among the leadership, among conservative leaders, that there was an appalling lack of critical thinking and logic, that they weren't able to properly think through the issues and come to a logical conclusion as to what the right thing to do would be. I saw that those decisions were being driven by public opinion or media pressure, and they weren't driven by principle. And that became very apparent as well. And I really saw that the success or failure of leadership could generally be narrowed down to those two issues. The first, the ability to think critically through the issues, and the second, the willingness or the commitment to make decisions driven by principle rather than public opinion or media pressure. So when you're sorting through all of that, and when I was sorting through all of that, and you saw the failures and successes, I also realized that COVID didn't necessarily create any new realities in that sense with leadership, but simply exposed realities that were already there. Their commitment, their resolve, their ideals, they just hadn't been pressure tested. And I think COVID really brought that pressure tank in there, and it really showed the absolute importance to have this incredible commitment and to have leaders that have the ability to think critically through the issues. I saw that among the majority of leaders in this country, and again, conservative leaders, and elsewhere, not just in this country, that they didn't even have the faintest idea of what personal freedom or liberty is. Once you really got down to the nuts and bolts of what it is to be free, they didn't have a clue. They would come up with, when we saw that even, in our own province, we saw people say things like, how do you know if we'll never be able to lock down again, or things like that. The thing that they don't understand is that we, as the general population, that we have in today's world, we've got as much access to information as any government official, and with probably a lot less chance of being compromised. So we can look at the information ourselves, and I think most of us are pretty confident that if things got bad enough, we can figure out when we're going to lock ourselves down. When our kids need to be protected, we don't need the government to do that for us. And I think a lot of government officials have simply they think that somehow they need to be the ones in charge of that. And I think that's a huge flaw that we see. I saw that with conservatives in general, that there were a couple of major flaws with conservatives. And that is that, first of all, we just like to be left alone. And I mean, that's a huge plus. It's a huge strength. But just like with everything else, our greatest strength is usually also our greatest weakness. And the fact that we want to be left alone is the same reason why we don't get involved. We'd like to, put our vote in and trust that the person that we vote for is going to do their job. and then we just back off and let them do it. Obviously, it's a major flaw. The second thing is that we tend to divide ourselves over the very little that divides us, and rather than uniting on the 90% that unites us. And again, it's a weakness, but it's simply because it's also a strength, because we care about those issues. So there's things that we don't agree with. Generally, we talk about it, but very important that we bring unification, among conservatives. At that point, looking at all of that, I very much recognized, and also through TBA, really made that clear to me as well, that for democracy to work, the citizens must get involved. That we, the people, must hold the leadership accountable. We, the people, must have their backs when they're placed in tough positions by doing the right thing. So when they do the right thing and they're put in a position where media pressure is high or public opinion is against them, we also need to back them up. We, the people, need to do that. And for freedom to survive or to thrive, we, the people, must establish the framework and set the course for that. And it sounds a lot like I'm talking about freedom a lot, that is but I do believe that right now that is the principal issue, that is truly, I truly believe that is the battle of the day, the primary issue of our day. We lose that and we won't have any other issues to fight for, and I truly believe that. Right now, I think we need to be exceedingly vigilant. Our discernment meters should be absolutely redlining on any infringement of our freedoms. And I think that's incredibly important today, especially. We need to recognize that anything that can be used as a means to strip us of our freedoms will also be created to do exactly that. And I think if we don't recognize that, then we're setting ourselves up for failure. Therefore, policies need to be put in place to combat any measures like that. So that's about it. That's the reason why I got involved. And
10 seconds.
For your time.
And thank you. Thank you very much, Albert, for your presentation. Go ahead, David, with your question for Albert.
Albert, welcome. Great to see you again. Thank you for taking the step of running. What is something unique that you are going to bring to the board that's going to help us win and beat the NDP? I think that's a question that a lot of people want to know, and I'm going to change up the questions because people, I think, are getting bored with my old question.
Well, so you had to save the tough question for me. It's of course difficult to say, because at the same time I have the highest regard for the people that are running in my region as well. I think we've got several very good people that are running, and I would be happy to see, anyone that stands for freedom and that has the same commitment to it to win. I think we all bring a lot of passion, but it's something that I'm extremely passionate about. And I think I'll definitely bring that to the table. I love thinking through the issues critically. I love looking at every angle of an argument, thinking through them and articulating them to people in a group setting, and trying to bring the concepts to their mind in a way that they can understand. That's what I love doing. And I think that's perhaps a strength that I have.
Thank you again, Albert, for that. We very much appreciate you. So Albert is one of the candidates for the South region. And we just ask that all the members here, make sure your microphones are muted until called upon to speak. Thank you so much. We appreciate you considering that, and thank you. So now we'll be hearing from Rob Smith. Rob, go ahead and test your mic. He is also a candidate for the South region.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Benita. Thank you, Roy, for asking me to be here. Thank you, David Parker, for your work. I hung a little bit on how Benita opened things up by talking about the democratic process. And I think that the reason why all of us are on this call tonight, myself, who's a guest of TBA, is because the democratic processes have failed, and we want to ensure that we bring it back. And that means the grassroots. And we've heard that a bunch tonight, but I think we're all like-minded in believing that politics works from the ground up. And that hasn't been what we have been facing for the last little while. So I had the opportunity a couple of weekends ago to meet Albert and to meet Chelsea Petrovic, who I think will be speaking next, who I think are TBA candidates for the South. And I think I can tell you with a pretty strong degree of confidence that the South is in good hands, whoever you elect on this time round. So I wish my best to Chelsea and Albert. I hope I get your vote or get second on your ballots, but I think if that's your choice, I think they're fine and excellent candidates. Why I'm here, starting a couple years ago, my constituency association had lost the confidence from the Premier. We no longer believed that the Premier had the best interests of Albertans at heart, certainly those in Old Didsbury, Three Hills. And then when I became president, we started pushing on the party for some changes that we thought were necessary. We found that we didn't have confidence in the party either. So see, we kind of went rogue and started doing our own thing as a constituency association and found that there were actually quite a number of others, not all rural, predominantly rural, but not all rural. There were actually some Edmonton and some Calgary ones as well that worked together, anywhere between 22 of us and 35 of us. So if you actually think about that, 35 constituency associations of those that actually had UCP MLAs, we represented the majority of the constituency associations. And we felt that we had a top-down Kennyocracy that we resented and rejected. We felt that there were decisions being made with respect to the pandemic that were an infringement on civil liberties, and in fact, something that could have been potentially questioned under the Federal Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And so we pushed hard for an earlier leadership review, which I know TBA was involved with that as well. And we were at the very least successful on that. We fought on different ways to implement it. We didn't entirely win on all of that, but we did win in getting that earlier leadership review. We were able to see a change in Premier, and now we've got a new Premier that I am entirely behind. I think all the constituency association presidents that fought so hard against Kenny and fought so hard against our UCP provincial board of directors are behind Danielle Smith. And now it's just full blazes, full guns going towards the provincial election to ensure we beat NDP. But, and this is a big but, the next phase of the progress that needs to happen within our party is to see some changes at our provincial board level. Those of us that were CA presidents have heard our UCP provincial president talk about reporting to the Premier or working for the Premier. Nay, that's not the way it goes. She or they work for us, the constituency associations. And so I want to be a voice at that table to ensure that the board and the party are actually accountable to the constituency associations, which means in turn that they are actually accountable to the grassroots, the members of our party. They're voters in provincial elections, but I think more importantly to us, they're voters in our party, which means they're the grassroots, they are the lifeblood, they're the spine, they're the brains, they're the heart. And I will take 10 volunteer grassroots represented people over 5 bureaucrats or 5 politicians to accomplish something any day of the week. There's just no question of that. Now, I've been always pretty politically motivated and love being involved, but never at this provincial level before, because I just never thought I was good enough. I thought it was smarter people, more experienced people, and I didn't really have a say. But what I've learned is an awful lot of politicians, not maybe as honorable as I thought they were. And so I want to get your voice and make things happen. Thanks, Benita.
And thank you. And I was supposed to warn you about the time running sooner, but I was so enthralled by what you were saying. So anyway, had to tell you time's up. Now it's time for David Parker's questions.
You bet.
Hey, Rob, my question is very simple for you. How did you come to the conclusion that you needed to stand up? Give us the moment where you're sitting there and you're like, okay, why am I going to take this step out and go against the party, against everyone, people telling me that I'm, attacking the leader? What was your breaking point? What made you stand up?
Well, honestly, for me, but honestly, I think, David, it was for my whole entire constituency. When we started getting the daily updates with respect to the pandemic from our Premier, this is not a health expert. This is not a medical expert. This is a masterful politician. And for me, the entire decisions with respect to the pandemic should never have been left to politicians. And actually what that's made me realize is, good heavens, how many other situations should not be left to the decisions of politicians? But maybe it's just that we need better and more representative people. When Al talked about the moral and ethical standards, I couldn't agree with him more on that. We just need politicians that are more moral and more ethical. And I want to be part of a provincial board that helps to make that be what UCP is all about. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you.
And thank you to those candidates. So we've now heard from 2 candidates from the South, Albert Van Heerden and Rob Smith. Chelsea Petrovic couldn't be with us today, but Roy might be able to play a video from her. So give it a try, Roy, see what happens here. And then we'll have some remarks from David. And then we want all of you to stick around over the next hour, because that's when we get to hear from the provincial candidates. So go ahead, Roy, if you have that video from Chelsea ready, let's see if it'll work out for us.
Absolutely. I'm just going to screen share here real quick. So, sorry, there we go. My busy screen. So there's a website called unitedconservative.ca. All the candidates are listed there with short biographies and also videos. So Chelsea couldn't be. She's the mayor of Claresholm, and they have a meeting from 6 to about 11 p.m. tonight. So she has a really good excuse. And what I'll do is just go ahead and play her video right here.
Hi, I'm Chelsea Petrovic, and I'm running for the South Zone Director position.
Are you guys hearing that?
Yes, we are. Thank you.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
We have MLAs and boards specific to the different regions in our province, all having unique needs to their area, and it is up to the local CA boards to allow those voices to be heard. I'm currently the mayor of Claresholm. I run a not-for-profit organization with many volunteers under my direction, and I've contributed to over 50 town boards in the last year alone. My experience gives me the confidence to say, I know that I can assist.
That was my fault. Sorry about that, Roy. Can you unmute, Roy?
An unprecedented instability. Throughout this time, several UCP MLAs have focused on playing politics rather than speaking on behalf of the voters for whom they were elected to represent. This deviation from the MLA's role has not gone unnoticed by the majority. We are awaiting the leadership race results as I speak to you now. Mud has been slinged by all candidates during their campaigns. And when this leadership race concludes, we will have little opportunity to prepare for the next provincial election. No matter which candidate is voted in as leader of the UCP, we must come together, united, as one team and one people. I believe that boards are of the utmost importance for communities, agencies, and political parties alike. It all begins with the volunteers on those local boards. They give their time and energy in order to work together, wrestling to make ethical decisions for the best interest of those they serve. If a board doesn't have the support or guidance it needs, if it lacks proper direction or does not understand their important moral role in the process, then it is comparable to building your house foundation on sand. If the boards fail to execute their role and responsibilities, the people will suffer for it. We need to ensure that we have the best people at the table so that members and the public can trust in the process. I would like to have board information easily accessible for all. Members need to know times and locations of meetings so that they may be able to attend themselves. And in order to allow voices to be heard, contact information and any board openings should be broadcasted widely. This information is almost impossible to find at the moment, and that needs to change. I would also like to see more youth learn and get involved with the democratic process in a hands-on way. By partnering with schools, let us lead the province by offering micro-credentials and internships to our youth so we can build a better future. I'm willing to volunteer my time and give all my board experience in the hopes that the UCP can live out the grassroots movement as it was intended. I'll be at the AGM to answer any questions you have for me. I look forward to serving the Conservatives in this province. Please give me your #1 vote for the South Zone Director so we can make sure the UCP Foundation is rock solid and to not allow another NDP government to make the decisions for constituents and communities, nor control this beautiful province. Thank you.
Thank you, Roy, for playing that video. Just so you know, everyone, you can go to unitedconservative.ca and see biographies and videos written up from any of the candidates.
Can I just say something really quick before David does the closing comments? I don't know what I would do if I was in any one of those rural ridings, because those are all like amazing candidates. Like that whole group there would just rock the whole United Conservative Party, right? So Dave, explain to us about how that, like do we have to choose just one, or is there some system that allows us to put a vote behind more than one person?
Well, hello everyone, and thank you for joining us. We'll be moving into our next session very shortly, so please stay for the province-wide one, because the way the system currently works is there's 5 regions. There's the North, Central, the South, Edmonton, and Calgary. Each of these regions gets 2 directors that represent them, and there is an election every 2 years. So you don't serve a 1-year term as a director, you serve a 2-year term. So the people we elect today or this weekend will be the people who are there for the next 2 years. Then in a year, we'll get to elect the other half of the board. Now, the hope, of course, is that this board will help to hold the other half of the board accountable, and perhaps certain members of that board will decide that they no longer want to be on the board and will be replaced. But the point is that only half of the board is being elected right now. So only 1 person from every region and 4 of the VP or vice president positions. So the people you've heard from today are your regional representatives, which means we had people running for the regional representative in the North, Central, and the South. Now, if you are not from any of those regions, if you're from Edmonton or Calgary, that's okay. What we're heading into, anybody can vote for. And then at 9, I believe, we're going to be meeting with the Calgary and Edmonton people, and they're going to be pitching. So it's a lot of democratic process that we have to go through here. A lot of Zoom time, a lot of screen time, but it's important and it's for our democracy. So how you're going to pick your candidates is we're asking that the people that we've had present to you today be in your top 3. You are allowed to pick, just like in the leadership, just like on the ballot, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. So for everyone running, we're asking you to pick the people, your 1, 2, or 3, or 1 and 2, depending on how many people you have running in your region. So 3 in the North, 3 in the South, 2 in Central. That way we won't split the vote, because if one of those people doesn't get as many 1s as someone else, they will probably fall off and take the other person over the top. So that's the strategy we're doing here. We're not, as Take Back Alberta, going to be telling you which way to rank them. But as you've heard from these people, we have some amazing freedom fighters running. And please consider ranking them 1 or 2 or 1, 2, 3. With that, I guess we'll probably be moving on to the next section, right, Benita? Or Roy?
Yes, indeed. We're moving on to the next section, folks. So everybody stick around. So that first section had to do with the different regions. You also get to vote, everyone gets to vote across Alberta with regards to these next upcoming candidates. So we have candidates that are running for treasurer, VP of communication, VP of policy and governance, and VP of membership. And so we have some great candidates to share with you. And these folks, you can vote on these folks no matter where in the province you live, as long as you have that valid UCP membership. And so stay tuned in for at least the next hour. Just so you know, in that hour afterwards is when we'll be focusing on the Edmonton and the Calgary areas. Now, I have on my list that Ken Engler, who is a candidate for treasurer.
Benita,
go ahead.
Yeah, if I can just step in here. We're going to do a little bit of just a couple of announcements while people are coming in. So we expect to see further people coming in the next few minutes. And so let's just give them a few minutes, but I have some important things to share. So we have a little bit of time here. I'll do a screen share here and then, try to cover off a few things that are important. Again, we want to make sure that everyone knows, of course, this weekend with the AGM, we do have the Freedom Fest that's supplementary and done in conjunction with the UCP. So there's no events here that are overlapping UCP. In other words, you get there on Thursday or Friday. There's a lunch potluck barbecue at noon with David Parker, and the captains are going to be there, and some of the candidates. And so that does not interfere with the start time for the UCP, which is 6:30, where we have governance, debating, voting, right? So Freedom Fest is it's a beautiful campground, just about 15 minutes away from the hotel. Lots of people are going to be camping, tenting, that kind of thing, but anyone can go there. We also expect that there's going to be some people that'll just that can't get to the big event, the AGM, but they're supportive of the Freedom cause, and they're going to be part and celebrating there at the Freedom Fest, organized by Jared McCoy. And so just so you know, there's a phone number right there. I'll just leave that right there for if you want to book a campground. So there's events Thursday, and then Friday, Saturday, if you're there, pancake breakfast. And then of course, you can see that we're trying to work out that there's family, there's fun, there's fellowship. There's even a church service on Sunday morning. We just want this to be part of our experience to make the AGM a little more family friendly, a little more focused on fun and not just, the serious stuff and the drinking, right? So we also have a hospitality suite. So I just want to talk about that for a second. When you arrive on Friday, we don't have the room number yet, but it's really important for you to know that we do have a hospitality suite, and we'll have signage up. You'll know where to go. We'll make sure that it's going to be up somewhere in the hotel. So it's a premium hotel room, emptied of beds. But there we're going to have, we're going to have a little cue card we're going to hand out to everyone who our preferred candidates are, so that, you just, when you're going into the voting booth, sometimes you get nervous. You think, okay, I can't remember the names or whatever. We're going to have cue cards with again, our preferred candidates. We're not telling you who should be first, second, third. We're just telling you these are all really good candidates. And we also have what we call an identifier, so that when you're on the floor with 2,000 others, you're going to be able to recognize other people who are freedom focused, not necessarily with a big sign that says, I'm for freedom. It's going to be very subtle, but it's just a way to connect with people. So you want to find, bottom line is you want to find the hospitality suite. It's going to be very, very important. I think that's all I wanted to really talk about. There's the hotel, and of course we have the AGM. There's the big hospitality suites. Ours is not in right on the main floor. Ours is in the hotel, as is some other organizations and groups. So just keep that in mind. Again, events start on Friday. The important thing on Friday is governance, debate, and voting. We do have, and again, you'll be able to get that when you go to the hospitality suite. One of our TBA members wrote a really good guidance sheet on all of the votes. So if you're interested in these votes, you'll be able to, read about the guidance, the comments that we have. And if you want to participate, there is one vote on that evening that's really important. So if you can get there on Friday night, there's one very, very key vote we need to win, just so that you're aware. Then, of course, Saturday, the big event is the board election, goes at 10 o'clock. And that goes basically from 10 to 2, something like that. But get there early. And then, of course, later in the afternoon is the policy debate and voting. And again, our guidance sheet, we go through all the policies. Most of them are pretty straightforward. They're yes, 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 no problem. There's a couple of places we're saying, there's a concern. You can read it, you decide for yourself. The thing that's important about David's vision, which I love, is the vision is, we're not telling you how to think, what to do. We're encouraging you to become a critical thinker and to become dedicated to the cause of freedom and of making Alberta the best it can be. And that means, yes, we got to roll up our sleeves and do some work. The benefit's going to be huge. If we can succeed in the Take Back Alberta blueprint, it's going to make a massive impact for the province. The potential is massive. And so but it's going to require all of us getting involved. So if this is too much for you, this debate and policy voting, the important piece is the board of directors, right? But you might as well learn the rest. It's not that scary. And then, of course, on Sunday, you have the election readiness training. That election readiness training starts at 9 a.m. So you almost have to choose between church and the training. What I do know is that this is probably good for most of us to go to, but I do know that TBA is going to have its own election readiness training here soon as well. Anything you wanted to add to any of that, David?
Nope. The only thing that sorry, I was eating, taking a little snack because this is a 3-hour journey. But I think the only thing that I would add is try to involve yourself as much as you can in everything that's happening. I know that can seem overwhelming, but people are actually way friendlier in politics than most people know, because it is actually a volunteer experience. And a lot of these people at the convention, like let's take Vicky, for example. She's been involved before. She was attending these things before. Me, I've been attending these things since I was 15 years old. I love these things. It's like almost a family reunion sometimes. It's volunteers. It's people you've fought political campaigns with. And many people on this call, some of their first campaigns were the leadership review and the leadership campaign that just happened. Think about the fact that there's people there who've been on hundreds of those campaigns, and they have a lot of experience that you can glean and get you taught on how to take your school board, how to get the municipality on board, how to fix the problem that you see in the world. So go in with an open learning heart. We're not going in as adversaries. A lot of people there have a lot of wisdom to share with us, and I think we should learn it. But also, don't hold your ground and don't be manipulated by people, right? Because there's snakes, right? So as God says, be as wise as serpents, but as innocent as doves. So we got to be wise, and we got to not be taken advantage of. But let's learn how people have been working on this before. There's a lot of people who've been fighting for our province for a long time that are going to be there.
Excellent comments, David. Again, thanks for your vision. I think I used to be involved in getting people elected, and then I would go back to work. And now I say that was a mistake. You need to stay involved, and we're all going to do that together. So you see here just a listing of the various regions. So if you're wondering if you're in the south, north, central, that's important to kind of figure out when you're deciding on voting. Hopefully you already got that figured out. And these are our regional captains. So I'm going to just leave that up for a second. And Benita, why don't you go ahead and introduce our next section here? I'll do the admitting people to the room.
Okay, thank you very, very much, Roy. And so we're getting into that section with regards to the provincial candidates. And I'm super excited to hear from each of these guests who are with us today. The first one is Ken Engler, and he is running for the position of treasurer. And so I'm sure we'll be interested to hear what he has to say. So Ken, why don't you give your microphone a check there? Just make sure it's working okay.
Hey, how are you doing, Benita? Good to see you.
Good to see you again, Ken. And I'm so glad you can be here to present. So we'll give you up to 8 minutes to give us a speech. And after that, there will be at least one question from David.
Okay, well, thank you. Yeah, it's just great to see so many familiar faces up there. And for those of you that know me, great to see you again. And for those of you that don't, great to meet you and exciting to be here tonight. So yeah, so we'll start off. I'm running for treasurer. That's a technical position. So let's get the technical requirements out of the way first. Yeah, I Bachelor of Commerce with distinction from University of Calgary in 1991, Chartered Accountant designation, which is now called a CPA, for 29 years, including top 10 marks on the qualification exam. I've been self-employed since 1999. Yeah, I've spent years on nonprofit boards. I was a treasurer of a downtown church for several years and led a major real estate transaction and setting up a legacy fund. Yeah, I was on the In From the Cold board, but when they were transitioning from a volunteer run to a staff run organization. And I've spent, own condos, so spent many, many years on the condo boards, managing the budgets there and bringing my expertise to help give everyone in the condos a better place to live and good value for their money and good property values. So I got my 10,000 Gladwell hours in finance. So I guess I can consider myself a very, very competent financial professional. So here talking to TBA people, yeah, there's 3 tenets in the David's writing there: freedom, grassroots democracy, and Alberta first. And then David has a 5-point plan. 1 was to remove the old leader, 2 was to elect a new leader, 3 was to deal with the UCP board, 4 was to win the general, and 5 is take back municipalities and school boards. So I'm just going to talk about what I have done and what I plan to do with all 5 of those steps with the lens of freedom, grassroots, and Alberta first. So step 1 was to remove the old leader. Like most of us in this call, philosophically, what happened in 2020 and 2021 was just simply personally unacceptable. And the actions of our governments, media, medical experts, and major corporations was just, I'll just say unsettling. I have other words, but I'll stick with unsettling. And that got me looking. And one thing I realized is they were organized, we weren't. So the journey started as I became a founding member and part of the leadership team of a self-organized pro-health, pro-freedom group. And that group threw events. And one night at those events, TBA and David Parker were our guest speakers. So I was introduced to Mr. Parker at that event and learned a few things from David. Yeah, just a very great, as we all know, motivating fella. And learned that one is if 1% of us get involved, we make a difference. And if you look at numbers, I like to refer things to numbers. Less than half of 1% of Albertans voted to remove Jason Kenney, and we got rid of him. And about 1% of Albertans voted for our new leader, Danielle Smith, and she is now premier of the province. So it doesn't take large numbers. It takes a small percentage of motivated, activated people. And the other thing I learned about David, which has been touched upon tonight, is that we need to be a big tent. Yeah, we're never going to get 100% of what we want. There's 212 people on this call right now with 212 worldviews, but in politics, if we want to split votes and argue and fight, we can, over the 10 or 20% we don't agree on, what we end up is with an NDP government and we get 0% of what we want. So yeah, unite and yeah, get under the big tent and understand you aren't going to get 100%, but it's way better than getting 0%. So with regards to the actions I took to get rid of Mr. Kenney, so I sold memberships and worked my network and let people know what I thought. I wrote letters, and I was in the room with Blaine and Rosemary at TBA processing ballots as part of the SGM, and that to me is a very grassroots thing to do. It suits my skill set, and it makes sure that provides structure to the process to make sure that the members are heard and get the result that they wanted. And we were successful in getting rid of Mr. Kenney. He did linger, but he appears to be somewhat gone now. And then the next step was to elect a new leader. So I said, okay, what am I going to do in this process? Step 1 was to look at the leadership candidates and see who I was A, most aligned with, and B, who was had the potential of being electable. And after analyzing the candidates, Miss Danielle Smith with her no more lockdowns, no more mandates, free Alberta strategy, and Wild Rose political philosophy, became pretty apparent that she was quite aligned with me philosophically, and again, quite an electable person. So I personally booked Danielle to attend an event at the Pro Health, Pro Freedom group, and in this small setting, we chatted for half an hour, and frankly, we hit it off. And then a few days later, a few phone calls and meetings later, I was asked to be the CFO of her campaign. So I went from looking for a leadership candidate to being on the inner circle of a campaign team of what became the front running candidate. And during that campaign, not only did I do the CFO duties, bills, donor info, financial reporting, budgets, treasury function, but I also organized 11 events / fundraisers, got out and worked with people, managed volunteers, did everything from move chairs to set up green rooms to meet VIPs, and even got to speak at an event. So just dove in there. And also more recently, I was co-led the scrutineering team in the ballot verification room, where several of you saw me in there. And yeah, on October 6th, I built and organized a team of 90 volunteers at 6 locations throughout the province, and we ran on a no shenanigans platform. And I'm quite confident after all the work put into the scrutineering process that the will of the members was heard. So during this campaign period, I developed a great relationship with our new premier, with her campaign team and staff, with several MLAs, with UCP staff, volunteers, and grassroots members. So next step is to the UCP board. So I didn't get into this to get a job or get close to the premier for personal advantage. Got in to make a difference, and I saw treasurer was up at the UCP board. So here I am running, and I guess I want to work with the new premier. I've enjoyed working with her, and I'm going to continue working with her, but I'm going to be in a trust but verify mode, and I want to be collaborative. I don't want to be subservient. I don't want to be obstinate. Just work collaboratively and work towards getting her platform implemented. And also I'll bring fiscal confidence and solid infrastructure to the UCP so candidates can focus on representing electors and winning elections. So that brings us a step for winning the next election. And again, to me, the number one thing is we got to go in united. We got to go in focused. I think once the people of Alberta get to know Danielle and she executes on her platform, I think we're going to be in great shape. And just to throw some quick numbers at you, in 2015, 625,000 people voted NDP, 950 voted UCP and Wild Rose, and NDP won a majority because we split the vote perfectly on the right. In 2019, 1.1 million people voted UCP and 650,000 voted NDP, and we won a great majority. So if we stay unified, get our message across, get our platform across, very confident that we will have a UCP government in 2019. And I see the unity as I have relationships with all levels of the party, and I can be a unifying bridge during this election. And to get half a step ahead is take back our municipalities and school boards is step 5. Bill 42 is recall legislation. Looking forward to making that a little more palatable, going from 40% of eligible voters to maybe 50% plus one of votes cast to recall unaccountable elected officials. And so that's a concept, but that's a little getting ahead of things a little bit. So I'll just say I will be at the Devon campground on Friday at noon. I will be touring the facility Friday evening. I'll definitely stop by the TBA hospitality suite. I'll be in the candidate room at 8:30 a.m. on Saturday morning, and look forward to meeting you all, answering your questions, and getting to know you better. So thank you.
And thank you.
Ken. Oh, sorry, Benita, go ahead.
Oh, you go ahead, David. You're the one with the question. Go ahead.
Ken, thank you for everything you've done, and thank you for the scrutineering particularly. I just, there's two things. One is, would you be supportive of calling an inquiry into how the money that was raised for the SGM that never happened was spent? If you become the CFO, that's my first question. And my second question is, you did a great job on scrutineering the vote for Team Danielle. I know a lot of people were very impressed with your performance there. Could you just share how important scrutineering is in all elections with everybody? Because I really want people to be focused on that, because we're going to need that in the days that lie ahead.
Yeah. So first question on the money. Any money brought into the party must be accountable to the members. And so we have audited annual financials, and we have reporting I required at the AGM on the financial reporting on the agenda. So definitely I'm supportive of being accountable to the members of how money was spent, and with the SGM also. That was a controversial decision and probably deserves a little bit of extra scrutiny. So yes, that's supportive of that. And scrutineering is basically, I did some training sessions on the scrutineering. I know Benita was there, and she helped us out there. And the key to scrutineering is you're not doing, you're not acting, you are overseeing. So you're in the room, there's auditors in the room, there was UCP staff in the room, there were volunteers in the room, there were returning officers in the room. And you're there to watch the process and make sure everyone's doing their job. And when there's decisions to be made, you're not there to really question the decision. You're there to make sure a decision is being made, used logically and reasonably using the data available. So, and that really, you're there to keep everybody honest and just to have discussions. So the returning officers, results have to get out, ballots have to get done, things have to move. So and decisions have to be made. And are the decisions consistent and reasonable? If you're rejecting a ballot, is it because it doesn't fit the rules, or because you don't like the hat the guy's wearing? So that's where you sit down and say, okay, was this a good decision? Was it reasonable on the balance of probabilities? And just want to say the returning officers, UCP staff, volunteers, the audit firm, which also acted in a scrutineer's role and an independent role. All groups were just excellent in the room, and it was just a great experience and got to know a lot of people. And yeah, I cherish those relationships and look forward to moving forward with those relationships. And yes, if you have administrative, accounting, numerical skills, yes, scrutineer, get out for any election, scrutineer the vote, and that it will make a difference, because it keeps, just having smart people in the room keeps the people honest. So
Thank you very much for your messaging, Ken. And actually, I personally served as a scrutineer in a ballot counter October 6th. So I will vouch for, it's an important job, and it's actually kind of fun to do. So thank you, Ken. Our next
thank you.
representative that we're going to hear from, we actually have another candidate for treasurer on this call. And so in a few moments, you're going to hear from Jack Redekop. So Jack Redekop, could you please just test your microphone, Jack? Just say hello, make sure it's working okay.
Hello, hello. Can you hear me just fine?
Yes, that sounds pretty good. Thanks, Jack.
Okay.
And so we'll give you up to 8 minutes to speak, and you go ahead and deliver your presentation.
Thank you, Benita. And I've traveled up here to Edmonton, and so I'm working kind of remotely, and I don't think my background is working quite the way it should. And it looks like more of a distraction to me than anything. So I'm going to go off video so that we don't have to see this stripe across the screen. I hope that's okay with everybody. Just a little bit about my background. I'm a lifelong Albertan. Grew up in Coaldale, Alberta, small town, southern Alberta. Took my university at the University of Alberta in Edmonton. I guess my finance career started pretty early because I was a vice president finance of that student union before most of you were born on this call, quite frankly. I am a very engaged and practicing Christian. I guess my background, 30 years, I founded a business as a successful entrepreneur. It's still very successful today. My son has taken it over, frankly, done a better job of it than I think I did, but created over 1,400 real and sustainable jobs with that business. And it's great to hear from even one of my past employees on the call, Darcy. Thank you very much for saying hello. He got his first job through me and is up in Fort McMurray now. You might be back here, Darcy. Anyway, thanks for saying hello. I've had 20 years of volunteer service, mostly in South Calgary communities. City of Calgary, winner of the Heart of Calgary Volunteer Award. I've also been involved in politics very actively over the last 15 years as a member of both provincial and federal conservative parties, vice president, president, chief financial officer, and election campaign financial officer, both federally for Midnapore, and currently I'm the president of Calgary Fish Creek. My whole group over the last year and a half, I was part of a group of presidents that at least 26 of us, sometimes more than 37 constituency presidents on a call, that really pushed for an early leadership review. As probably most of you know, it was originally scheduled by Jason for next week, this coming up AGM. And we, as a group of presidents, tried to impress upon the executive that this wasn't acceptable, that they weren't listening to the members of the party. They ignored us for a very long period of time, but we were very persistent and had a major, I think, effect on having that review scheduled in the spring. We further pushed for every member to vote, and that took a lot of arm twisting and even public screaming. And we finally got them to at least agree to a mail-in ballot. These iterations were just continuing throughout the reign of this current executive, and had much to do with you on this call and most conservative Albertans losing trust, not just in our leader, Jason Kenney, but in the executive and the whole party together. And that what created a lot of the disunity that we have today. I was an early supporter financially as well as vocally and verbally, particularly among the presidents of our group. For Danielle Smith, I was truly adopting her 5 tenets of conservatism, which have always been there: freedom, family, faith, free enterprise, and community. And I early on declared to the rest of our president's group that frankly, I was going to only vote for 2 people, and Daniel Smith was going to be my first vote, and Todd Lowen was going to be my second vote, and that I would not vote for anyone else. So, you know, that's kind of my background, but the important thing is, you know, where we're going from here. And I think as a treasurer, yes, you are responsible to make sure that the administration and the fiduciary accounting responsibilities are there. But I think I step back and above that and really look at what the essence of the treasurer's position is. And quite frankly, it's to ensure that the members are having their dollars spent the way the members would want them spent. I heard a question earlier from David Parker about the AGM. Well, it wasn't just the Red Deer AGM, which was a closed event, and we had even presidents of our group that tried to get in and were denied entry. So yes, why are funds spent on a closed event, and are these members' dues and donations? Most probably. There was another event in Spruce Groves, and quite frankly, I was invited to that event and I declined attendance at it because it was another invitation-only event. And you know, our party website says your membership puts you in the driver's seat, but in fact, that has never occurred, because even if you were prepared to pay dollars to go to AGMs and special events, you may not have even been invited, and therefore wouldn't even be in a position to vote. So now, does putting you in the driver's seat means, you know, spending $300 and having to drive to St. Albert to exercise that vote? Certainly, I'm a proponent, and with your vote as treasurer, that these are tenets of a membership, that you should be able to freely vote in your own constituency on important matters, and particularly for executive and also on policy and governance. So that's my basic platform, a member-focused objective.
Thank you so much, Jack. We have a question for you now from David. Go ahead, David.
Thank you. Sorry, you're muted, David.
Sorry, guys. Jack, thank you again for what you did in standing up to Jason Kenney when a lot of other people weren't. You were there on the front lines. And I'm really glad you're running for the board and thankful for what you did. I want to ask about what's going on with these pricey AGM fees. This is something that a lot of TBA members have brought up. We talk about it pretty much at all meetings. If you've ever been at one of our meetings, why do you think that the party is charging so much for people to be able to have a say in how their party's governed?
Well, my only conjecture is that they're using it as a moneymaker, David. And that, I mean, they will tell you in our president's meetings that they're all budgeted to break even. Well, you know, certainly it doesn't appear that would even remotely be the case. This is the highest fee that any of us have experienced in all the AGMs that we've had. The last one I think was $250. Now it's $350 at $50 less if you have the early bird. So yeah, I think they're using it as a moneymaker. I mean, even the location isn't, you know, the best location for the bulk of the members. And you know, so it's a strategic location that I suggest that Jason chose. Well, we know Jason chose it, and then the executive just followed through with what he desired. It was at it's at River Cree this year. It was at Grey Eagle last year, and it's all from a government political posturing standpoint to you know, make peace with the Aboriginals and make sure that we're giving them all the well, it's all very good to do that, but I don't think they should be doing that on the members' backs. Because there's our issues here, obviously, that are integral to the party, both from a policy and a governance and from an executive standpoint in terms of who we're electing to this party going forward. So this sort of misuse and abuse, I'll call, of members has been going on for a lot of the presidents will tell you that, you know, we go to the all presidents meetings and there was never anything in terms of us suggesting things to them. It was always top down, you know, go ahead, get some more memberships. And by the way, give us some more donations. And that's all. We don't want to hear from you anymore.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you very much. We're now going to hear from our next candidate, unless Roy or David has a comment at this time. I work closely with Roy and David, and I always have to remember that they have times they want to interject. So either of you gentlemen, if you need to interject, go ahead. We're good to keep going? Okay, thank you. So our next candidate is a candidate for the position of VP Communications. And this candidate is a candidate you can vote for no matter where in Alberta you are. And this candidate is Samantha Stanky. So she'll be speaking about being of service as the VP of Communications and hopefully also share some about her background. Go ahead, Samantha.
Thank you so much, Benita. Hello, everyone. I want to first start by saying thank you so much for coming. And the fact that I see 214 people on a call to do with politics is always exciting. So I thank you so much for taking time out of your lives to join into the process and come to the AGM and truly just make a difference. So I first got involved in politics. Since I have 5 minutes, I will try to use it up as much as I can. I first got involved in politics when I met my husband back in 2008. I helped out on a campaign just in a very minor role. I never really liked being in the spotlight. And then when we had our vote for unity between the Wild Rose and the UCP, the PCs to make the UCP, I'll be completely honest, I voted no to unity at that point, but the overwhelming number of people that voted yes to it put us into a situation where we created the UCP, and because that's what the members wanted, that is the direction I went. So lead us down to making the UCP. I became the president of the Central Peace Notley Constituency Association. And so my MLA was Todd Lowen. Previous to that, I'd served on the constituency board in Edmonton, Beverly, Clairview, which was held by an NDP MLA. So I have had an NDP MLA, I've had a UCP MLA, I've had an independent MLA, and now I'm back to a UCP MLA. Most recently, I ran Todd Lowen's leadership campaign. And I can tell you that one of the reasons I ran that campaign is because I believed that Todd was everything I tried to be. As a president, I spoke out very early and I was criticized very much for that. But it's what my people wanted. And so I felt the duty to do that. And that was kind of the start of everything for me. I spoke at a rally at the legislature for the first time in 2021, which is, I think, where I met Roy. Previous to that, I had given one speech in my entire life. It was at a wedding. And I maybe got out 2 sentences and I started crying and my husband had to deliver the rest of it. So I'm not a public speaker, or I wasn't a public speaker. But after that first rally, I knew that it was so important for people to just share the other side of things that were happening. And so I felt called to do that. I am a mom. I have 4 children, and they were the main reason in my life to stand up and make a difference. You can ask David. I'm sure he can attest to this. There are many days when I know that things feel heavy and you are wanting to quit and you're wanting to walk away. But I can tell you that you have shown elected people the power that people possess, that we have more power than they do. And I think finally, for the first time, they are recognizing that they need to start listening to us because we put them in the position that they're in. And my commitment to you is that if you decide to choose me as the VP of Communications, I will always come to you because you put me in that chair and your voice is the voice that matters. Beyond that, I look forward to meeting all of you at the AGM, and I can't wait to meet you in person and see you. And please, if you have any questions, I will leave my information in the chat box, and you are more than welcome to reach out to me by phone or email.
Thank you very much, Samantha. And by the way, it was good working with you some earlier in the summer, early in the campaign. So thank you. We'll now hear from David. I believe he has a question for you, Samantha.
Well, I just actually want to just give Sam TBA's endorsement. We haven't done that for everybody, but Sam only has one competitor and we're not endorsing that person. We're endorsing Sam. So in this case, you only need to vote for one person, and that's Sam. She was Todd Lowen's campaign manager. She was one of the key organizers behind the entire freedom movement here in Alberta, and was one of the key people who got the 22 CAs to sign on to get the special general meeting. So I just want to say thank you, Sam, and give you Take Back Alberta's full endorsement because we need people like you and Todd Lowen running this party. That's the full belief of Take Back Alberta. And since you're the only TBA person running in this election, we're supporting you. So thank you for that, Sam. And for those in the chat asking that Sam come on video, I just wanted to let everybody know that unfortunately Sam is in our far north and we still haven't figured out the internet there quite yet, as much as we'd like. So she would have been too blotchy if she brought on the video feed. So if you'd like to meet Sam, you can shake her hand. I'm sure she'd be happy to talk with you at the AGM, which you need to attend to vote anyway. So I hope that you all go up and shake her hand. Roy, do you have anything to say?
Absolutely. I've gotten to know Samantha when we started working with Todd Lowe, and he actually rallied a number of members of the MLAs across the province. Even though he was kicked out of caucus, Todd had such high regard and respect with so many of the MLAs that we're able to queue up meetings with Premier Peckford and talk about the Constitution, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and that's where I got to know Samantha. She's an organizer behind the scenes for Todd, and building connectivity all across the province with all of these various constituencies. A lot of frustration because they would have some groups on board and then at the time of a vote, they were gone. So to finally get 21 together to say, let's have that leadership vote, that was a lot of work, and it would have never happened if it wasn't for Todd and Samantha and a few others. So I just wanted to say this is an easy one for me to say yes, absolutely. 100% want to endorse Samantha, and thank you for all your hard work this last year, Samantha.
Thanks again, Samantha, for your message today. We're going to move on and hear from Ray Strum, who's running for the position of Vice President of Policy and Governance. Ray, why don't you try out your microphone?
I'm here.
Oh, perfect. Sounds nice and clear, Ray. Okay, so the floor is yours for up to 8 minutes.
Thank you, Benita, and particularly Roy for organizing this, and to all of you as participants for being a part of this wonderful event. I want to give a special shout out too to David Parker, who has just worked absolutely tirelessly over this whole time period. I had the privilege of meeting David as a result of some of the individual groups that were getting together at particular points in time as a result of the lockdowns and whatnot that were going on with COVID and some of the impacts that it was having on children. And these are primary issues, in my view, as I've gone through this whole process and staging of evaluating what was going on with our government. I have a long history, if you like. I'm 72 years old. still full of vim and vigor as it goes. I began looking at politics back in the day when E.C. Manning was premier of the province. And my uncle was involved in that whole process as well, initially coming on into Parliament when in 1954. I was 4 years old at the time, and that impacted me incredibly. He moved on to become Minister of Agriculture, and eventually became the Minister of Municipal Affairs, and then became the Premier. He was the last SOCRED Premier before Premier Lougheed came on the scene. What a legacy was left by the individuals that made up the conservatism in those days. These were men of character. They were not always what you'd call forceful, but they were men who had character, were very astute in what they did, and they answered to the public. This is something that we really, really need to get back to. As I've been progressing through, working through some of the things that have been rather appalling to me over the last several years. And it actually, if I could go back and identify some of the boards and whatnot that I've been privileged to be a part of, working on church boards, on clubs that I've been involved in. And then more recently, in the late 80s, early 90s, working with home educators in the province, basically to ensure that rights and freedoms were maintained for all of our membership that we were responsible for. And what a privilege it was to work with so many, I would call them independent thinkers. And many of those individuals are part of our movement even today. So that's kind of a bit of a background. I'd like to also say that my investigation into what was going on very early in the UCP party under Premier Kenny was starting to become rather disturbing to me in terms of looking at how we were succumbing to federal politics, not really looking out for the interests of Albertans. And being part of the oil and gas industry, I have an independent business, a geological laboratory that I own and operate. I was seeing the impact directly as to what was going on with our relationship with Ottawa. The decline in our oil and gas industry was absolutely appalling and is still affecting us today. And so that kind of preceded what led up to COVID. And in early 2020, I became actively involved in researching what was actually going on.
1 minute remaining, Raymond, just 1 minute left. Thank you.
Okay. And so what happened there is that so much of what I saw going on was actually fraud. And this is what has motivated me to step into this position where I'm running for the VP of Policy and Governance, because it's policy and governance that really directs where we're going. That has to come from the grassroots, and that is absolutely essential. I love interacting with our grassroots members and hearing from them what their desires are, because that's what we need to take forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Raymond. Thank you. And now we'll go to David with any questions for Raymond.
Well, Raymond, we had you on the Canadian Story and got to have 50 minutes of questions with you. So if anyone wants to listen to
What a
those,
pleasure that was.
they can listen to an hour of me asking you questions. So I'll just ask you a very brief question with a very simple answer. what do you love most about Alberta? And what would you want to preserve in the culture of our governance?
Freedom. Freedom for our people. And that runs across the board.
Thank you, Raymond. I suspect there's many people in this chat who would appreciate that. So thank you so much. We're going to go on to our next guest, ladies and gentlemen. We have Patrick Malkin here, and he is running for the position of the VP of Membership. Patrick, let's test out your mic. How does it sound so far?
I think it sounds good. Can everybody hear me?
That does sound good. Okay, Patrick, you have 8 minutes or less for your opening statements, and then we'll hopefully have a question for you.
Fantastic. Thank you, everybody, for coming and allowing me to speak this evening. My name is Patrick Malkin. I'm running for VP of Membership, as Bonita had mentioned.
Patrick, you're muted.
How did I get muted? Oh, there we go. Let's start again. I've been a Red Deer resident for 19 years. I have a family of 5. I have an 18-year-old son, a 15-year-old daughter, and an 11-year-old son. I've been a business owner in Red Deer South since moving here. My most recent business you may have heard of, it's called the Granary Kitchen Restaurant in South Red Deer. I've served on several boards while in Red Deer, for some of them for-profit, some of them not-for-profit. Most recently, I've served on my local CA board. For the last 3 years, I served, for 2 of those years, I served as the VP of Membership. And for the most recent year, I've served as the president of the board for Red Deer South. What can I tell you? I'm passionate about business. I'm passionate about the next generation. I think it's imperative that we're all able to hand over something really worthwhile to the next generation. I've gotten to know David Parker and many others on this call during the lockdowns, where many of the TBA would meet several times weekly in my restaurant. I was one of several constituency presidents who stood on the steps of the legislature and asked for the current executive board to step down. I'm running for the VP of Membership because I believe that the job of the board is to put the power back in the hands of the people. I believe that membership is important. And I believe that the conservative movement in Alberta has a role to play federally and to advance and set the standard for federal conservatism in Canada. I'd like to just take a moment and relate to you, if I can. I attended the SGM in Red Deer South, which was my home riding. Obviously, I'm a member of the party. I registered. I attended. I was denied access. I was removed from the SGM by the executive board that currently sits. And I say this to reaffirm that we're all the same people. We've all been terribly hurt by recent actions by the party and by the leader and by the board. And I'm here to make a difference and bring a change that we all need and want. And I would be honored if I could earn your vote for VP of Membership. That's it.
Well, I didn't get to say this, but I will say it now. Sorry, Raymond. You also have the full and total endorsement of Take Back Alberta. As we know, you have been a solid supporter, and now I should have said that more, but we're focused on Patrick here. So Patrick has the full endorsement as well of Take Back Alberta in this race. He kept his restaurant open, and is a big reason there is a Take Back Alberta, because I didn't die of social isolation. I was able to go and meet people in his restaurant despite being one of the small fringe minority with unacceptable views. Actually, here's a little bit of TBA trivia for you. The very first meeting that ever occurred for Take Back Alberta was between myself and the yak farmer, Chris Kinnear, and it happened at a booth in his restaurant. So Patrick has been a great champion for all of us in the background. He's stepping onto the stage, and we support him in stepping onto the stage. He's already been a champion for the membership in fighting for this special general meeting, and he is going to go forward as our champion, hopefully, and win this upcoming election if all of you show up and vote. So thank you, Patrick.
Thank
but
you.
My question for you actually is very specific because I care a lot about the membership, and it is, what are you going to do to make it A, easier to know whether or not you are a member, and B, make it so that the CAs have to be more accountable to their members on when their meetings are?
Oh, this is a great question. So in order to streamline the membership, one of the programs that I want to, and I'm going to try and shorten on my answer because it's quite long. The program that the party uses is called SIMS, and it's terribly archaic. It's a horrible program, and the way the party runs it is the party mitigates what the CA, the constituency associations can do with it. And so it's difficult from a constituency level to even know what's going on. I'd like to move and transition to another cloud-based system, something that can be secure, something where people can log in. Like we should all be able to log in with our membership, just like we log into Gmail or whatever. And we need to have something so that you can look and say, oh, hey, my membership is coming up, or hey, what are the new, what are the AGMs that are coming up in my region, or is there a local by-election, or what's going on? We really need to streamline that whole process, and that's a top priority for me, is to make sure that we can get a system that is current, up to date, transparent for the members, and will serve all the purposes that we need to have. Hopefully that answers your question, David.
Thank you, Patrick, again. I'm a big Patrick fan, as everyone can tell. He really was with me in a dark time in my life. So thank you again, Patrick, for keeping the lights on for so many of us.
We'll really always be here. Thank you.
Thanks again to all the candidates. We're getting ready in a few moments to transition to that time where we talk about the Edmonton candidates and the Calgary candidates. I'm just wondering if Roy has any additional messages he wanted to share during this time of transition. Go ahead, Roy.
Absolutely. So we're actually a little bit ahead of schedule, which is amazing. And I agree with, so many of the comments that are coming in. We have amazing candidates. I'm so stoked and can't wait to vote. And so one of the jobs we'll have is, as Freedom voters with TBA, is to spread the word on the floor, find other who are of like mind, and make sure that we get all of our best people elected, and that board is going to be, I think, in fantastic shape. Now, it's true, it's just slightly over half of the board is being voted on. It's slightly over half, actually, so that's pretty good. And so again, the hospitality suite, for some of the people who joined later, we have two great things that are happening with TBA to help connect people with each other. There's the Freedom Fest events starting on Thursday night. I'll bring up the slides here in just a minute, but I just want to talk about it. Again, it's the social piece of this, to be able to get to know one another and bring people to the event. The Freedom Fest is not just for AGM attendees. It's for anybody that just really believes in the freedom cause and wants to hang out, and there'll be all kinds of great things happening there. So I'll bring that slide up before we at the start of the hour. So I want to make sure that the people from Calgary and Edmonton, they're jumping on, and the others are maybe having to leave, but I want to make sure that everyone remembers the Freedom Fest. And the other piece is that hospitality suite, and it's really quite funny because we have people donating money to the hospitality suite, and we don't want to pay for alcohol. Like I said, we just decided we're not going to have an alcohol, in our suite. We'll have good food, fantastic food. We'll have really good fellowship. We'll hang out. We'll have really good information. So when you get up there, we'll give you, like I said, the kind of the cheat sheet or the cue card, whatever you want to call it, of the list of our preferred candidates to help you with voting. We'll have an identifier. And we'll just have information, other information. They'll have opportunity to meet candidates. So that'll be right in the building, right? So you do have to go up an elevator, but that's okay. It'll be a great place to hang out. We actually had to pay a bond to not have alcohol in our suite. But so we'll get the money back afterwards. But I just said, that's so funny. He says, well, we always do alcohol in all the suites. I said, well, not ours. We're just not going to do it. And it's a smaller space anyway. And we just want to make sure that the other activities that are important are going to happen. So those are very key things. Again, we're hearing as well through the chat, a lot of people say, how late can I get there? You should buy your ticket to get there right away. Don't waste any time. Buy your ticket. There's going to be registration starting about 2 o'clock on Friday. So the lineups will probably be very long if you wait till 5. So there might be an advantage to get there a bit early. and to officially you get a nice lanyard and everything else, and they'll allow you in and out of the event. So you want to get there. And yes, they do allow registration on Saturday. So a lot of people are not able to get there on Friday night. They're going to come carpooling from Calgary. They only have one day. They're going to leave early, arrive at 10 o'clock. I would try to arrive a little bit earlier, because remember, you have to go through the registration line and then you have to vote, right? So maybe aim to get there about 9:30 so that you clear through that registration line and get up to our hospitality suite, grab the our voter guide or whatever you want to call it, and then get into line to vote, right? So those are some of the things to think about. David, I'm sure you have something to add. Go ahead, or Benita, as to what I'm missing there, but those are the critical things to think about. Oh yeah, one more thing I should say. People have been asking about this guidance sheet. It's actually a document. I will email it to everybody that's on here. Some of you are going to have yesterday's emails and today, but you might as well have it more than once. So everyone, it's a really well produced 12-pager, covers off all of the policies that are going to be voted on, all the governance resolutions as well. So some of you want to get there and learn about that process. It's not rocket science. And I can think of some really good things that we should introduce for next year involving municipal elections to make sure that we have policies to make things better on that front. But go ahead, David, if you have some comment, or Benita.
No, I think we're ready. Are we good to go to start the Edmonton and Calgary one?
Technically,
or should we wait for 5 minutes, perhaps?
Yeah, just wait a couple minutes. Yeah. I mean, it's going to be again that we have a Strom from the famous Strom family, and we're going to hear in this next hour a Byfield from the famous iconic Byfield family. Wouldn't that be a fantastic couple of names to have on the board of directors of the UCP, right? What a message that's going to be. So yeah, if you want to hear some of these candidates from Edmonton and Calgary, there's only 3 yet to go, and we're just going to give it maybe another 3 or 4 minutes, and we'll get started with Benita. Who's going first, Edmonton or Calgary?
We'll hear from Edmonton first, and we have Vince Byfield speaking in a bit here. Before we do that, actually, Roy, I was going to recommend that you bring up the slideshow that shows the AGM schedule plus the Freedom Fest information again, because I think we might have some newcomers on the call right now that didn't see that on display earlier. And so we've got a picture of the hotel where we're gathering, River Creek Casino. When you get there, go through the main entry of the hotel or use the south entrance. The conference is taking place in the conference room area. I actually stopped by this facility a couple weeks ago just to check it out, and it's quite the facility. I'm very impressed by that. It'll be my first time attending a conference there. And so my assumption is the registration table will be somewhere in that long hallway there, and they may have more than one registration table. So somewhere in that long beige hallway you see there, that'll be your registration table. So you can either enter through the south entrance on the far left or through the main entrance of the hotel, which is somewhere near the bottom of the page, kind of on the right there. So the conference, of course, starts at 4 p.m. You may want to get there early to register. Some people are going as early as 2 to register in case there's lineups. We're envisioning there could be 1,000, there could be 2,000 people or more here. So it's just a good idea to go early. Opening ceremonies are at 5. What we really need you there for on Friday, if you can make it Friday, is the governance debate and voting happening from 6:30 until 8:30 p.m. After that, there's some relaxation and social time. There's multiple suites to visit, including the Take Back Alberta suite. And what I encourage you to do is obviously do some connecting with fellow Take Back Alberta freedom-minded allies, but keep in mind that part of the purpose of this conference is friendly integration. So we want to make new friends too, and do it in a really positive way. And so we're there, just make new friends, integrate ourselves with the folks that are already involved. On Saturday, lots going on. And by the way, if you need to look at this schedule, it's available at unitedconservative.ca. And on Saturday, the most important times to be there will be for the voting. So the board election voting begins at 10. Policy debate and voting is at 2:30. Would you want to expand on that, Roy or David? Anything about the Saturday voting, any particulars, the rated ballot, etc., written ballot, electronic ballot, anything you want to chat about there?
Okay, so I'm gonna walk people through this for like 2 to 3 minutes, just because it's important. So there's kind of three main pillars to any party convention. There's the election of the board, which we've talked a lot about. There's the policy debate, which is generally where the policy direction of the party is discussed. So if you go on the UCP site, you go and read the policy manual. That's what's been passed by the membership. All the CAs getting together and talking about policy, arguing about issues from education to healthcare to policing to sovereignty. All these things are discussed at these meetings, and then they're voted on. And the ones that pass with a certain threshold will then move on and be considered the policies of the United Conservative Party. So that's what the policy part is. But the governance part is really important. It's just that people don't really understand the technical things about governance. But one of the things in a governance debate is there are now things in the constitution of the party, of the United Conservative Party, that allowed us to do things like have a special general meeting. And why is this kind of thing important? Well, this is especially important because somewhere like Ontario, the members cannot call a vote on the leader. They're not allowed to do it. And that's a way that the gatekeepers keep control. So it's very important that we keep the governance of our party grassroots. And so these governance debates and voting, they may seem really boring, but the people who've taken the time to read through these and talk about them and discuss them, they've really thought this through. Please follow their guidance on this, because there's some important things, important votes that may not make sense if you haven't really dug into the Constitution and stuff, but they're explained in this document that's been produced. And I think this is part of learning. This is part of learning how your democracy works. So Roy, I'm not sure if you have anything else to add to that, but
no, that's excellent. And thanks for that explanation. So those are the three pillars. For some of us, we're ready for 2 and 3. And by next year, all of us will be there 2, 3, and bringing our friends as well. And it's going to be less than 375 because we'll have a fantastic board. So thanks, David. We're going to now get shifted here to have our first presenter for the big cities. And this big city needs, we need a revolutionary leader to turn things around in our capital city. And I think we have one like that. But Benita, I'm going to let you do that introduction.
Well, I'm so pleased to introduce this next person, in part because I've had the privilege of meeting him in person, unlike some of the other reps on the call who I haven't met them all yet. So thank you, Vince, first of all, for running for this position to be the Edmonton representative on this board. And Vince, now please take a moment to check your microphone and make sure it's working okay. Hopefully
Hello. Test.
Oh, sounds good to me. Okay, so we'll give you up to 8 minutes if you need it to speak, and we'll have at least one question for you.
Then I better get to it. Hello, everybody. My name is Vince Byfield, and I am a freedom-aholic. But unlike other addictions, I will never give up on my love for freedom. And the reason I'm here is because of a certain number of truckers who made their way to Ottawa. They were an inspiration for the nation, and God bless them. And I also want to thank my dad, who these gentlemen showed very much that that we can bring back freedom to this land, and they are a source of inspiration for us all. So I thank the truckers, and I thank David Parker and what he has been orchestrating with Take Back Alberta. Both of those things are indicators of people taking charge, regular people taking charge. And so God bless them. I am running for Edmonton Regional Director for the UCP Board of Directors. I am a businessman and I publish books. Our best-selling series is called The Christians, Their First 2,000 Years. We've sold 185,000 copies of that worldwide now. So without further ado, here are the three things that I hope to accomplish here in Edmonton. Members, money, and marriage. And the last one's a little intriguing, but first, I'll get to it a bit. First, my background. I live in Edmonton with my wife, Grace, and our 4 children. I've been involved in politics, especially in Edmonton politics, since 1973, almost 50 years ago. Since that time, there's always been a Byfield getting mixed up in politics. First, my dad, who started Alberta Report, which reached a peak readership of 500,000 Albertans. Then my brother Link, who was elected as an Alberta senator, but the Liberals in Ottawa refused to appoint him and put a party, what's the word I got here? Puppet, yeah, there in his place. But my dad and my brother are both passed on now. And many of the things near and dear to their heart and mine, which are a true provincial equality, which we do not have. We are a sub-province, and I won't get into that in this call, but read out on other fine organizations like APP, they are talking about these things, and they need to be talked about. And increased autonomy. Like Danielle Smith says, we just want to have the same kind of deal as Quebec. All right, so these things are still not a reality. And so I felt it necessary to pick up the torch that my brother and my father had carried, fight the fight and win the battle. So, and by far the biggest threat we have is the motto of my Facebook group, The Battle for Alberta. That motto is no NDP in 2023. So objective number 1 is members. There's no way we can take back Edmonton from the socialist horde currently controlling our city without members, lots and lots of members. So that's job number 1. I intend to triple the number of UCP members in the fine city of Edmonton. So to do that, we need to make politics fun again. No more holing up in dingy rooms every month. We can change the game. We can bring all the constituencies to meet under one big roof with food and fun for all. Politics does not have to be dull. Let's make it fun. Let's make it exciting. Let's fill the room with momentum, fill us full of hope. Next up, money. We actually have crazy good tax advantages for political donations compared to other nations. And the middle class and the mid-sized businesses are totally going to be targeted by the NDP. Giving a few thousand now by a business in Edmonton will save them tens, possibly hundreds of thousands of dollars if we can stop the NDP from seizing power. Because if they do, they will totally sink this problem, this province, probably permanently. So my goal is to raise $2 million before the election. That would work out to $100,000 for each of Edmonton's 20 seats. And with that, I believe we will be able to cut the NDP in half in Edmonton and take back 10 seats. So lastly, I want to talk about marriage. So Parker and the TBA team have really united the right. I know Jason united it, but then he disunited it. Parker has brought us all back together. Kudos to David and all of the TBA team. God bless you all. You have really done our province a service. Now we only have one major conservative candidate on the ballot coming up in the next election. There will be no more splitting the vote. That is so important in our province. So, but we are now married, Conservative and Wild Rose. We are married, but the relationship is rocky. We need to focus on our common ground, which is much more than our differences. So don't buy into the naysayers. Let's focus on what we have in common. And we all treasure, well, first of all, we all value our freedom. And we may have different interpretations of freedom, but we all love freedom. So let's focus on that. We all treasure our faiths, Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Buddhism. We love our faiths. We love to have the freedom to worship. We all place our families as our highest of priorities, and the rights of parents are absolutely essential and fundamental. And we Albertans just love free enterprise far more than any other province. That's why I love being an Albertan. So I ask my fellow Edmontonians to give me a chance, because if we are even half successful and take back just 5 seats from the NDP in Edmonton, there is no chance that the NDP will seize power next year. So that's my message. I'm at your service. Thank you.
Well, Vince, it's no secret what a hero you are to take back Alberta to this province and what your family's done. So you hardly need any introduction from me, but obviously Vince has the full endorsement of Take Back Alberta. And he's running against someone who goes around claiming all kinds of absurd things about us. So we don't even have to be, he's running against an actual enemy of Take Back Alberta. So this is not difficult. So thank you for your time, Vince. Thank you for what you've done and for what your family's done and the service that your whole legacy is giving this province. So we appreciate it.
Thank you.
And my question for you
Uh-oh.
is, which seats do you think we can take in Edmonton?
Oh, I don't have my sheet here in front of me, but for sure, we already have Edmonton Southwest, and we will keep that. Right beside it is Edmonton South, and on the other side of it is Edmonton West Henday, and we came within 1,000 of each of those. And if we had done our volunteer apportioning properly in this city, we would have had 3 seats last time. So those ones are absolutely in game. We have some possibilities. McClung, the vote there was split rather badly because of the Alberta Party. We had Stephen Mandel, the premier, running in that province. And so we had a great candidate, but so I think we can take that one back. Also along the Manning side of things on the south, we have Ellerslie. And I think that Ellerslie is definitely takeable. And then up in the northeast, we've got Castle Downs and Decorah and possibly even Beverly Clareview. So those ones. Where we cannot really have much of a chance this election is the core, the Mordor of Alberta, which is going to be Edmonton City Centre and Strathcona, that's Notley's riding, and also I would say Glenora and Gold Bar. These ridings are probably achievable once we take the others back. There was a time when every single seat in Edmonton was blue. And I believe we can get back to that, but not this election. What we have to do right now is cut the cancer in half. And that's my goal.
Thank you, Vince. You've inspired me. In fact, you were a big reason that Take Back Alberta 2.80 came into existence again. So thank you for everything you've done. Benito, back over to you.
Hey, well, thank you very much, Vince. And I just must say that this event is sure making it easy to vote, because in some cases we are directly endorsing a candidate. In other cases, it's a little harder because there's more than one great candidate running. Now, our next presenter is running for Calgary, and it's Peter Weichler. And Peter, I don't even know if I pronounced your name correctly. So if you're on the call, I'd love for you to correct me on the pronunciation of your name. Peter Weichler.
Okay, you can hear me fine?
Yes, I can. And how do I say
good.
your name?
Yes, you're saying it correctly.
Oh,
if you have a proper German background and speak German, you say Peter Weichler, but Peter Weichler works pretty good.
Well, thank you, Peter. So you have up to 8 minutes to tell us about yourself, tell us about why you're running, tell us about your goals once elected, etc. You have the floor for up to 8 minutes.
Well, you know, I almost want to say ditto. I have to say, I listened to Vince, and I went to a meeting, I don't know what it was, 6 weeks ago, 2 months ago, and Vince spoke. And he was an inspiration because they were looking for people to move forward. And I thought, you know what? I got to step forward. Folks, I'm part of that generation that just let politics run itself. You know, we grew up in this society, we counted on the system working well. We counted on it to take care of us. We could trust it. You could listen to the CBC, you know, get the facts. And the chaos that we've lived with over the past years became a bit of a nightmare for me. I tried to retire here 4 years ago, and things just kept moving along, and I couldn't understand it. We had the worst thing happened. I talked to my friends in Quebec before the big election, and I asked, is this child going to have a chance? And well, they said it's impossible, and well, we're living with it. He's been elected more than once. Then I went through the nightmare of somehow we got Rachel in, and I thought, in Alberta, that's impossible. And then I started talking to associates of mine that I've worked with that are 20, 30 years younger, and I asked them, "What are you going to let this happen?" And they said to me, "Well, you know, we're from that generation where we've been taught not to raise our head." And I said, "What do you mean?" They said, "Well, you know that game called whack-a-mole? Well, that's how we've been taught in school. We don't raise our head because we don't want to get whacked." And I thought, oh my God, you know, you put that all together and you think, well, at some point, people have got to step forward. Well, the recent craziness that we've gone through that they call a pandemic, and what happened to us, it instilled a fear of things that I remember that go back to 1979. And I thought, you know, it's happening here. I don't want to believe it, but I've got to finally step forward. And that's why I'm here. And when I said 79, in 79, I went into East Germany and I visited family that stayed there. Everybody else escaped. And I asked these people, the wall was still up. It's quite a frightening thing to go into East Germany at that time, a real communist country. And I asked them, why didn't you leave? You know, they were literally a half hour from the border. And they said, well, we didn't think it would get any worse. And I thought, wow, you know, what are you talking about? Well, you know, they came in and they said the house is too big for one family. So they put 3 other families in. They came one day and they got the cows and they got the chickens. And then they said, well, you know, the land behind the house belongs to the state and you shouldn't really work there. You should work down the road 20 kilometers away. Can't get any worse. Well, we started seeing that happen here, and that's why I'm stepping forward. I'm an Albertan. I was raised here in a small town, and I can't believe we've allowed this to happen. And I want to do what I can. I want to get more people engaged. I think we can go back to the old days of social credit. They used to have the social credit booths. People talk politics and had a burger. We can bring that fun back. And that's why I'm here.
Peter, thank you very much for joining us. Sorry that we couldn't get my podcast done with you today. I was hoping to get it done, but there was a lot of other political happenings that were going on. Just for a pause, I was actually just speaking with the Premier, and it looks like 1,600 people have currently signed up to come to the AGM. So we have a lot of work to do, folks. We got to get at least another 50 to 75 people there by Friday to Saturday. So that's going to be important. But Peter, my question for you, are you still there, Peter?
Yes.
My question, sorry, you moved on my screen. My question for you is, as the director for Calgary, you're going to have a very significant role in the next election. You're you're going to be in the battleground. That's where the NDP is hoping to pick up at least 15 seats. What's your game plan? What ridings do you think we should target to make sure we can pull out a win and stop the socialists from taking over our government?
My goal is to get to know all the CAs. I have to tell you folks, I'm new to this, but I will engage. I've been really in the private markets. I've been in public boards, but not in the political spectrum. But I will work hard to get involved. The one thing that I really want to get involved with is we have to go everywhere. We've got to get involved with the Rotary. We got to get involved with all these different groups. I got to get my generation active because we've been asleep, and I will do that.
Thank you, A. I want to just thank you for getting involved because a lot of people aren't. And B, I just want to thank you for all the support you've given Take Back Alberta and how you've just shown leadership in your generation, the conversations that you and I have had. And we'll have you on the podcast, whether or not you end up getting elected, but that'll be fun to have that conversation as well. So moving on, Benita.
Well, thanks again, Peter, for coming on this call and speaking. We have another guest on this call. This guest is also running for the Calgary position for director, and her name is Irma Roberts. So Irma, give your microphone a try so we can hear you clearly.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. Okay. Thank you, Irma. You have up to 8 minutes if you need it, and then we'll have at least one question for you.
Thank you. It's great to see your friendly smile, because I have to tell you, it's pretty scary to be here tonight talking. So where do I start? I'll start at the beginning. I immigrated to Canada 30 years ago, and you guys can hear I have an accent. And I remember when I was like organizing a silent auction at my kids' school in Calgary, my son came home in grade 9 and he said to me, "You've got an accent." And I thought, wow, it took you long to pick up on that. So it's definitely not going to go away. I moved to Humboldt, Saskatchewan from Cape Town, South Africa. And people always ask me why, because we could also have gone to BC, but we thought that Saskatchewan is nice in the middle and that will give us the opportunity to travel. I never regretted living there. It's like I really was happy in Saskatchewan. The people was amazing. It was just a great community to live in and work in. And I know I asked him, so what happened if I actually go in a ditch? Because I've never kind of experienced snow and stuff. And that was like the whole rural Saskatchewan thing. It's like you just stay in your car, somebody will come and help you. So that out of the way, that's where I started. I lived there for 6 years and then moved to Calgary. Both my kids were born in Saskatoon, so they are still Rough Rider fans. They are now adults. As a mom, oh my gosh, I've traveled with them all over this city. I remember on evenings like Saturday evenings when I'm finally, okay, now we can just relax and maybe watch some TV. Friday evenings, we packed up all their stuff, hockey bags, and waking up, driving through, I live in Mackenzie Lake. It was always like the only people up, the only lights that you see on in the winter in Mackenzie Lake at 6 in the morning, I think, is people taking their kids to hockey. But it was great to volunteer in all of their activities. It was great. I missed a lot of that. They played hockey, they ski raced, they were in soccer. I just wanted to tire them out so that they don't do bad things. To me, it's, I also volunteered with the Canadian Bar Association. I'm a lawyer. I have, when I lived in Saskatchewan, I decided, okay, time to go back to school. And I currently have my own practice in Calgary and my own business. And as a lawyer, I have volunteered with the Canadian Bar Association in different capacities, currently with legal aid. I'm on the appeals committee. And also in Forest Lawn, I volunteered with an anti-poverty organization. I think what I got from volunteering at kids' schools with the Canadian Bar Association, I'm the Law Society where I'm a mentor for young lawyers. And in Forest Lawn it gives you kind of get into contact with all kinds of people and you get a feel for the community, not only where you live. And I think I've learned a lot from doing that. Now, to me, when I look at, what I want to do as a Calgary director, there's only one thing I want to do. I want to make sure that we never, ever have an NDP government again. Now, I am the president of Calgary Haze, and we do have different opinions on our board, but we respect each other. And one of the things that I have said to the board the other day is that, and we know that, is the face of Calgary have changed a lot. In the 2016 census, like 25% of Calgarians were first generation immigrants. That's people like me who've moved here, who wasn't born here. It's now more than 30%. And on our board, we have like a great guy who moved from Venezuela, and he said to me from 2 years ago, I need to get involved because I escaped socialism and I never ever want to be in such a situation. So I've been trying to get more people involved. We've got several Africans, that's me included, but more guys. And a lot of them say, we moved to Canada, it's a wonderful country. We want to make sure, you look back and you've left behind corruption. So even on my own board, I have realized that we need to build a conservative movement in Calgary. And we need to build it by getting younger people involved and getting new Canadians involved and getting them involved in the CA level. So to me, that's something that, for instance, on my board, we're focusing on. My biggest frustration is when I look at what I will do as a Calgary director on the board. First of all, I totally believe in an independent board. The board is not there to do the bidding of the premier. It wasn't there to do the bidding of Jason Kenney, and it's not there to do the bidding of Danielle Smith. Although it's got nothing to do with how much I support her, but I just want to make sure we have an independent board, because I'm responsible to the people who've elected me, and that's the people of Calgary. So if I go to that, is election readiness. Now, because I have worked and have been involved in CAs for 6 years, my biggest frustration was communication. And for any of you who have been involved on a CA level, it's like you just never get stuff from the party. It's like, where is this? And then we had so many board meetings where we would get so frustrated because we keep on getting these emails of people just asking for money. And now I've heard that it was a company who was doing this and they took half of the money as well. And like we kept on saying to people like, stop this. But the board just kept on doing it. They didn't listen to the CAs. And to me, that is one of the things that I want to do is like, I'm hoping to, attend CA meetings, because in the south of Calgary, I'm sorry, but nobody, when I was elected president, I don't think they even called me. I don't get, there's just no communication. So I want to make sure that, people on the street, the grassroots movement can come to the CAs and tell people like, this is what bothers us. And when I go to a CA meeting, and I've said it to my own CA, I said to them, you guys have to make a list, because I was in many meetings, and Patrick knows this because we were in the same meetings with all the leadership candidates, but also with Danielle Smith, where she said like she's going to have regular meetings with presidents. And I told my board last Thursday, I said to them, you guys, you need to start making a list of stuff that's bothering you, because even if I'm not elected as Calgary director, I promise you, I'm still taking this stuff there so that the premier and the board knows what is bothering people. Stuff like healthcare, stuff like my son's friend, my youngest son's friend, who's a paramedic who just quit. He's in his 20s because he's sitting for 6 hours with a patient at Foothills. That's kind of the information that I want boards to get ready, so that when I go to their meeting, I have that. I take it to the UCP board. I know the premier is going to be there and kind of put it under her nose and say, these are our issues, and then go back to the circle and go back to the boards and say to them like, listen, here's the stuff that I'm hearing, and keep that line of communication open, because that's how we're going to win the election. When people tell us these are the main issues, and the premier through all these steps and representation actually hears that. So freedom.
You're muted, Benita.
Irma, I was just saying thank you. You have about 30 seconds remaining. Go ahead.
Anita, or sorry, Irma, now you're muted.
Am I?
Irma, you're muted. Come there. Okay,
There
try
we
again,
are.
Irma. Okay, wrap her up. Thanks.
So to wrap this up, it's I'm very enthusiastic about doing this. I think I've got a good working relationship with most of the CE boards in Calgary. And yes, let's go for it.
Okay, Irma, nice to meet you. Thank you for joining us and putting your name forward with Take Back Alberta. I'm just curious what your perspective on the leadership review was. Were you supporting Kenny, or were you opposed to his leadership? And how do you feel about the leadership vote being changed from an in-person vote in Red Deer to a mail-in ballot?
I didn't like it, so I'll start with that first. I didn't like it that you changed the rules midway through the process. If we kind of set out the rules, I think we need to stick to the rules. I did like in the future, I would like to have, the mail-in is great because I get this, I vote and I go and throw it in the mailbox. But I did not agree with changing it midway through this whole race. That wasn't right to me. I felt about Kenny, it's like I was very enthusiastic when Jason Kenney came back to Alberta. He was the Minister of Immigration. He did a great job. And I even did a fundraiser for him. I think in the end, what really bothered me was his management style. I think he's got a lot of really good things that he can do, and he did a great job in the federal level, but I did not think that his management style was great.
All right, Roy, I think you're taking it from here, or?
Sure, absolutely, everyone. Thank you, Irma, and thank you all the candidates for taking the time, and all of the members. What we're going to do here is just wrap up with this final thought. Very, very important thing you heard again tonight. We need at least, let's call it 100 more people to come. Now, technically, the online registration is closed, but members may still register on site. And again, what bothered me about this whole process is another example. The current board, they had no information at all on the website that the sale was going to be, the online membership would be closed on this day, right? So they should have told us. So you find out the day of, and then of course, we don't know, are they going to increase the cost for the registration on site? So these are information, this is information we have to find out for sure. We're assuming it's $375 because there's nothing anywhere that tells us anything else otherwise. And we'll for sure try to connect with the right people to again underscore how ridiculous the system is. Not being clear with the rules, playing games, and this is just another example. But let's not be discouraged, everyone. The reason why we have this fantastic group of board is so that we can change things. That's why, right? We can change things, bring on this board. I would have never even thought of this except for David, right? So David explained it to us, like this is the key piece for the next step of taking back Alberta. And boy, do we have fantastic, fantastic candidates. So let's get another 100 people there. We'll figure out the thing about the extra cost and let everybody know. I posted in the chat box that AGM guidance sheet for the governance and policy. So I'll do it one more time before we wrap up because there's so much material in the chat. So I'll post it one more time. You can download it, and then you'll be able to print it and bring it with you. And so if you're going to the guidance to the governance vote of Friday, you'll be able to see our guidance comments about how to vote and the one vote that's very, very critical. And then also with the policies, most of it is pretty good, but there's a couple of things that we have red flags up and you'll want to just know about that. So I'll put that in there. Homework for everyone. Let's each one of us reach out to one or two more. We have donors that are helping to sponsor people. I got text messages tonight say, I want to sponsor one more person. I want to give, so we want to make sure people donate to be able to sponsor more, but we also need to match those donations with people who will come. So that's my closing comments. David, thank you for everything. Benita, you did an awesome job.
Thank you. And I've got a comment. I have a bit of a way with words. And so what I've done is I've composed this thing that basically invites people to take advantage of this UCP AGM opportunity. And it's a copy paste thing. You could send it to your network. So if you want the way I've worded it, then I'll just copy paste, send it to you, and you send it to your network. And it's just a way of persuading them, hey, you got to go to this AGM, right? And then, yes, we do have, for those who are having financial struggle, you go with your leaders of your region and you contact them, and then they can help with the covering of the costs. So do not let the price put you off, and tell the people that you're talking to, the price doesn't have to put you off. TBA can help.
David, closing comments?
So thank you, everyone. And we got you out of here before 3 hours. We thought we might go to 10, but we're on time, on schedule, and we're recorded. So things are going well. And I just want to thank all the captains and everyone else here who's here, and the people who put their names forward. Nothing's perfect. Maybe if we didn't say exactly what you wanted us to say about you, or maybe didn't give you as much of a backing as you wanted, I'm sorry. But we're all trying here. And I just want to thank everybody for what you're doing. And honestly, I'm inspired that we have so many people who are willing to get out there. Now, this has been mentioned a couple times, but I want to reiterate it. We're not there to confront people. We're not there to fight people. We're not there to be upset. We're there to learn, and we're there to grow, and we're there to take back our society, which means we need to learn from the people who've been there and doing it for a while. We published a collaborative statement with holding MLAs accountable today, in which we outlined the importance of not relying on a leader or an elected official or assuming that they're just going to fix things. We have to be the one to fix things. We have to show up. And actually, Jordan, the founder of Holding MLAs Accountable, has a funny little saying that I want us all to remember, and it's this: power to the people who give a shit. That's what it is. It's power to the people who show up. And I think as Albertans, we need to get her done and show up. So thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
Good night, everyone. I'm going to keep this open a little bit here, so that Benito might be posting something, and I posted, and any other questions for about 5 minutes, so we'll just stay online. So thanks, everyone.
Please take down my contact information, even though you think you don't need it, because this weekend, let's say you have a question, there's a good chance that all of these captains are going to be busy, but I might be able to answer your question. So please take my number. You can call me, text me, whatever text is better throughout the weekend, because it might be, oh, where is the Take Back Alberta suite, or how do I find David, or whatever the question is, and I'll do what I can to help you.
Yeah, another thing that I just remembered, if the media puts a mic in front of your face and asks for a comment, are you with TBA? This is something you have to be really careful of, and Benita's going to tell us what to do.
There will be media there this weekend, and what we've learned working with different groups is that it's better when each group has an assigned media liaison, because sometimes some of us fumble our words and it's just not great to be the person talking to the media. So there's one phrase for you to say if you choose to say it, and it is: Take Back Alberta is about encouraging good governance. If they push you for any other phrases, you say no further comment. If you'd like to know more, talk to David Parker or Benita Peterson. So that's the phrases. Take Back Alberta is about encouraging good government. No further comment. For more information, speak to David Parker or Benita Peterson. So that is our request to you. Thank you.
Roy, can you hear me?
Yep. Yes.
I just want to make sure that when will the video for this be made available and where will it be made available? Do you know?
I'm gonna make it available, like I'll have it converted this evening and then have a Dropbox file to go
Okay.
to you, and then you can do what you need to do with that.
Yeah, I want to upload it to the Facebook, both the Take Back Alberta Facebook page and also to the Battle for Alberta Facebook group. So
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. That'd be fantastic. So as soon as we're closed, then that's when they record, that's when the conversion of the files starts. So that's, it might take about an hour and a half because it's quite a
sure.
long
Yeah.
file. Yeah.
Just let me know. You
Yeah.
know, I'll probably wind up doing it early in the morning, but that'll work. Thanks a lot, Roy. Benita, great job. Just really good. Well done.
Okay, I'm going to close now, everyone. Have a good evening, a good night, and we'll see you at the AGM, everyone.